Good. First up, our utility rates study.
Yes, and I'm actually gonna go rogue really quickly off. the
Oh,
agenda.
you are gonna go rogue.
Actually, in a couple of ways, but first I wanted to introduce Brantley. Brantley is our new city engineer who started last Tuesday. Comes to us with a ton of experience. He's a really fantastic guy. We're super excited to have him. If you want to share a little bit about your background. I'm putting you on the spot, sorry.
Sure, yeah,
I'll not
absolutely.
take over.
First of all, I'm really excited to be here. For the last 8 years or so, I've worked actually, I've lived here for 20-some years. My wife is a local. She's born and raised here, so I kind of almost a local now. But worked in Seattle the last 8 years for NOAA, federal government. Just recently left there, and I'm so excited to join the city. You guys obviously have a lot going on, and looking forward to trying to pick up the pieces where I can.
We'll keep you busy.
Yeah.
Get out the paperwork
I
quick.
think he knows that already.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure you'll have time to connect with them individually, but now you know who he is. And then, Mayor, we also didn't talk about this, but I did switch the 6-year transportation improvement plan discussion with the utility rate study. That way, if we went longer with the utility rate study, we had a little bit more time. So we'll go ahead and start with the 6-year transportation improvement plan. In your packet, I just divided the existing, resolution that was adopted in 2024, and really, I just wanted to get any comments or feedback that you have on the current plan. From there, we'll provide you with the new 2026-2031 plan before the next council meeting, so we'll have another discussion, but just starting out, looking at the existing plan and seeing if there's any initial thoughts on that.
Any questions, thoughts? Again, this is something that can be amended. It's just that we have to get this out there in order to include any of these projects. Right? So it's a requirement, but it's not fixed in stone.
Andy, is the US 2 pedestrian underpass still a real thing?
Yes, our funding has been pushed out past 2035 or 2040, something like that. So it does need to stay on here, but is it?
Is it gonna be
I guess
immediate?
we'll really see what that looks like as we get closer.
I did have 2 questions.
Yeah, please.
On page, because it doesn't have a page number. It's the one, the multimodal, I don't have my glasses on, where are they?
Number 7?
Yeah, no, number 11,
And then 11 on page 2.
yeah.
We'll have a pedestrian trail.
I just wondered, it's a partnership with the county to extend a modal pedestrian trail at North Road.
That's a really good question. Does anyone else know the history of this one?
That would be the multi-use trail behind Rattlesnake that's being is now a road instead.
No, because that one's also listed on here. I'm assuming the intention here was to connect this up to the,
Isn't this the regional trail system that the Transportation Council at TRED are working on to connect communities?
Feel like connected for Shaston and all the way down to Wenatchee.
it will be.
Is it to get it?
Maybe where it says at North Road, that's not where we're gonna tie in, but yeah, I can modify this to be more clear. I don't know the history of specifically what went into this line item previously.
Okay.
But we can modify that to be like encompassing the whole pathways plan and not as specific to North Road, because there's nothing in any there's nothing in any of our plans that's for North Road or that specific facility. That's a really good question, Sharon. That's not clear at all.
Okay, if you finally clear it out, let me know.
Yeah, I think it was for that pathways, I think, and what then the assumption that's going into it was that was the route because we already kind of started that way.
Oh, okay.
But, and it seemed logical, but as you know, that they abandoned that.
Yeah.
But I think that's where that came from.
And
And I think that it was intended to get it to the icicle train station,
Same.
a clean route all the way to the train station.
Right.
I think so too, if that's, okay. Okay, and my other question is on page, on the next page.
Okay.
You know, page, oh no, page 3, I see it on this side. Number 15,
Yeah,
you're talking about the underpass, pedestrian underpass.
yes.
Do we know where that would be, or it's just a baby in stages?
It's years out, so that was the one Ann was asking about, that the funding was pushed, I can't remember if it was pushed to 2035 or 2040, but lots of years out. It wasn't tied to a specific location, but generally it was east of 9th Street.
Mike.
And so I think the original location that was proposed was across from the Link parking ride and into the Lewitt parking lot.
Okay,
Since
because
this is pushed out past our 6-year forecast, should we drop it off for now?
We can, yeah. So I don't know that,
Yeah. We might have to leave it on just because if we take it off, they take it off of their long-term plan.
there is also, like, the funding to that is really unique, and there is a chance that it can move forward,
Right.
like that it could be bumped up.
Okay.
But where we fell in the priority as of like a year ago, it's, again, I can't remember what's on it, but like 2035, 2040.
It was, so I did have a conversation with Senator Leas
Oh.
about this, because I asked that very question, should we just forget about this because it's so far down the list? And he was more, and probably just because he knew he was talking to somebody, he was more like, I think we will get that and it can happen. And it's unique because it is the kind of the non-vehicular pot of money. So his answer to me was, yeah, it's gonna be bumped down, but he said he's committed to, as long as he's in the Senate and leading that transportation, we would like to see it stay and.
Okay.
So I guess my next question,
Yeah.
kind of dovetailing off that, is should it stay on the plan? Because it's a lot of money for something not many people are gonna use. Human behavior is to cross on the highway wherever you are and where you intend to go. People are not gonna walk multiple blocks to use the underpass. Right?
I guess that's what,
So
like,
I guess, why?
yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I also think though that as we're looking at that area holistically, there could be other improvements made that force human behavior in a different direction. If that is. It does-
Fencing off Highway 2 maybe, but I mean,
Or not off Highway 2, but more off 9th Street, and then also looking at how we could integrate, I'm just throwing out ideas, but like integrate potential bus drop off, like last year during Village of Lights, we had buses that were dropping off and picking up in that location, so if you're concentrating people in that area and then they're crossing underneath the highway there, we could look at other ways to incorporate changing human behavior with that project. I personally wouldn't want to see that just fully drop off, like I think it could be really beneficial. But I think it would be important to implement this.
And that is the direction that we still have to develop, is that way.
I'm thinking that if you have with all that traffic going through and your stoplights are long, minute and a half, people might be enticed to take underneath, just because too long to wait and you can't get through because the cars are steady, so.
Is SOMAS aware that there's potential for this?
They are, yeah.
Is- I think how that integrates with the plans downtown would be really, I can imagine if it's really welcoming on the Front Street side of the highway,
Yeah,
then it could be a wonderful option. But I don't know how you can make it welcoming on the other side, but at least you can get people to go back that route.
yeah,
Start.
absolutely. I think that's great.
Did we ever do a study about under versus over? Like, cause I know like we're exploring the idea of a parking garage, right? Like, wouldn't it make more sense to incorporate an overpass that links to the one level of the parking garage versus digging underneath the highway?
Yeah, I think really high level, this was based out of I don't remember what year it was, but the Upper Valley Corridor study. I don't know that they necessarily went to that level of detail. I honestly, Shane, I don't
Okay.
remember off the top of my
I
head.
was just curious, yeah. if anyone,
But I don't know how tied we are to that, like,
right,
I don't remember,
Yeah.
I wasn't involved in the initial application, so I don't know how specific it is as to like under or over or tied to
yeah, that was kind of a blanket question. to
And it
anyone.
was considered as all of,
Okay.
in part of that corridor study, and the difference being that it actually takes a lot more space that way along
And
to get
overpass
it
takes more
over,
space
to get
versus
it up
under.
that high versus if you go under, you're only going under for people. If you go over, you gotta go over for all vehicles.
For the truck, yeah.
The trucks and everything. So that was the determination. I know
Okay.
doing that.
Well, I think they were
Thanks,
looking for, ADA stuff.
Right,
too,
yeah.
and go
No,
under.
it's going up, yeah. ADA requires, yeah. It would have to be so long and go back and forth so many times that, yeah. But yeah, it was kind of one of those things that just kind of fell on us. I mean, it wasn't like we had pursued that as a high priority. It was one of the things, quite frankly, that was in that corridor study that they felt like we had a shot at, right? So Senator Hawkins at that time was on the Transportation Committee and he put in this 411 at that point. So, yeah. It is what it is.
I'd be curious to know how much flexibility we have with project specifics for that funding. If there's some flexibility, it might be better to kind of tailor to tourist and local behavior in different ways and see if we can expand on various different pedestrian upgrades.
What other questions do you have? And also on the transportation improvement plan?
I want to update number 14 though, because that's happening.
Should we break it up into a couple of phases and for number 14, because we started the first phase.
Mhm.
We just don't know when we're going to be constructing it.
Yeah, we don't know the cost yet. We don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can absolutely update that with more details. What else?
With the utility rate changes, is that affected, is that gonna affect any of the transportation?
The only way in which it would specifically impact transportation is we've been calling like the integrated capital improvement plan, so if there's a street that we're going to improve, we can make it more general as like sort of like improvements is the type of thing we've done here before. And then get more specific as we get closer to a specific project. Aside from that, though, I guess, tell me more. Is there something somewhere else you go with this? Any other thoughts?
Well, just, I mean, I know the biggest obstacle to improving our roadways is the subsurface infrastructure, and with the increase in our rates, that is supposed to open that up to projects, right?
Yeah.
And so as those get scheduled, that should impact the transportation improvement plan, correct?
Yeah,
Okay, just wondering if any of that has shown up yet on our plan.
it has not, but we can, yeah, we'll incorporate that
Okay.
in a more general way, so it doesn't tie us to. But yeah. Thank you. Anything else? Well, that will lead us into our next item, which is the utility rate study itself. The bigger packet, we have the draft report from HDR, they worked on and finished, I guess they finished all the data in 2024 and then finished writing the report in early 2025. I know we promised that this would come back, so it's coming back. But I'm wanting to have this conversation, just be a high level of what your needs are, what you want to see, what information you want in order for us to start the conversation of the 2026 utility rates. I know we're still 6 months out from that, but I expect it'll take us a lot of time again. So as you read the report, I'm looking for just feedback from you guys, where you're at, how you feel, what you need, what we need to do to start this conversation for the next year's rates, and then looking at adopting this study as well.
Will you remind me why the percentage rates are so heavy on the first few years and then lighten up on the back end?
I don't know what to Chantal. I
Okay.
remembered all the.
I would say, from a high level perspective, a majority of it is the fact that we have some massive projects happening at the beginning. And we're just so under, we would defund all of the funds, just trying to do the projects. Once those initial projects are done, particularly with water, I think you have quite a bit embedded in sewer as well. But water is the one taking a lot of hits with a lot of debt, and we're just getting started. So that's kind of how it's supposed to happen. On the latter half, so the last 3 years or so of the 6-year study, it levels out because at that point, we've stopped borrowing money and stopped doing major projects. And at that point, we just continue doing what we've been doing for the last 15 or 20 years.
And I think we have quite a bit of, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have quite a bit of debt that's falling off, specifically in water.
Yep.
In the
We
next
timed it.
2.
It started 2 years ago, it started dropping off. And so the new debt though is coming on right now as you're getting several projects underway.
Yeah.
So we're having this debt fluctuate right now. And when she's done, it'll all settle. And so that's the whole point, is 3 years from now, the major work is done. Now, we haven't finished though with water because we still got the plant to address. Whether or not we keep the plant and just go with wells, you know, there's studies going on out there for us to decide which direction are we going to go. If we choose to keep the plant, that's another, probably 6 million plus to renovate.
No,
Yeah, right, yeah.
way more.
Yeah.
It was 20 million a few years ago. So.
Well, I'm talking about just the plant. A few years ago, we had distribution lines, plant, and well refurbishment built into that. But so much has changed since then. But again, the studies that are happening, the feasibility study, the sources study. Is there another one? Conservation?
Yeah, those are kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're all tied together as one big study. So those are what you're waiting for, aren't they?
Well, I think in the projects, Kevin incorporated some assumed costs and some funding for those projects as well. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember all these conversations that we had last year off the top of my head, and unfortunately Kevin isn't here, so. Again, these are things like, if we know what your questions are, then we can circle back with Kevin and have Kevin have another study session to help answer some more of the specifics as well.
I think, Annie, one thing would be really good to do, like say, the increase to 2025 is 18%. Is that right? 18%?
For water?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then from 25 to 26, 15%. So do we have a good lock on what projects we're gonna do with that, and how we're gonna use that money? So I think it would help me explain to people, like, okay, this is what they're gonna do with this money. They're gonna do this. So that would be what those proposed costs are. So then we can say, okay, this is why it's going this way, and this is what they're gonna do with it.
Absolutely.
And these are all in here. They're just hard to find because each utility has its own section.
Yeah.
Annual operations and maintenance is not what's driving your rates.
Mhm.
So
No.
if you didn't want to do any capital improvements, we wouldn't have to raise any rates.
Exactly.
So it's all the capital improvement. So you have to find each section in this document, and it's very methodical. It's water, and then I think it's sewer, and then I think it's garbage, and then I think it's stormwater. But the front end of this document, the first 25 pages or so, is the executive summary. So it's giving you just that high level look. After you get past those pages, then you start going into the deep details. So it sounds like what you guys really want to hear more about is what are all those capital projects for each one of those utilities?
Yeah,
And I know it's been
Please.
a long time.
get a
but
grip on it.
In, If I can multitask.
Beverly actually keeps a large sheet upstairs at the counter for the customers who come in and ask. And all she has is a printout of all of the water and all of the sewer capital improvements. And
I've seen
it
that,
shows
right.
every project, how much it costs, what year it's planned to implement.
Right,
So that's
yeah,
a great tool.
yeah.
I know it's been a while, but when we had the special council meeting for utility rates at the end of 24, there was a spreadsheet that was provided that broke that down. If I can multitask and pull up and see this. I can just have it up here for your reference, but. I think.
So I would just add that the thing that we're doing is making up for the fact that we have not been putting away for those capital improvements. So it is a big bill come due on a fairly, if we're going to address it, we're going to have to play catch up in some ways then. But the other piece is, then you want to be able to maintain and go on by having a capital amount, being set aside and replaced, because it's not gonna stop needing to be replaced, right? We're gonna have to figure out ways and again, the ideal way is that you build that fund so you're not constantly behind and that you can address them then as they come up. But we're still, the big hits are to play catch up to the fact that we haven't, we've got some pretty substandard infrastructure under those streets.
We leaked it today, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Andy, just a quick one for sewer. You're just putting aside 30 grand a year and 600,000 a year for collection system improvements. So that might be something you just tell them is part of this plan is to start putting away 600K per year in each utility.
Yeah,
So that way we're not borrowing in the future. We're actually putting the money up front into our account. And then we're able to pay a lot with cash. Because at a certain point, we're going to get to where all that debt has dropped off, but all the new debt has come on and taken its place entirely. And you still have more to do. So there's two things going on here. We are borrowing debt to build today, but we are also setting money aside for future construction to not borrow additional debt.
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I can bring some of the spreadsheet out. I know it's small and blurry up here, but this is where we kind of looked at the water improvements. Like what the funding first was, the purpose under this. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but we walked over this in 2024 at the end of the year when we were looking at adopting the 25 grants. So I can resend this out, but this is for both water and sewer, and this is really helping understand what those upfront costs were in the early years, 25.
Sorry, I can't read any of it.
Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry.
Can you send that out to us?
Yeah, do you want it right now?
I don't have a computer, but yeah, I take it.
I will send it after, otherwise me multitasking and sending you a snapshot.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Chantel said, one of the big changes is not only the immediate projects, but it is having that year over year replacement of both water and sewer mains funded locally, like through our enterprise funds. So that way we can start to make investments, whether or not there are other state or federal loan sources available. It's actually really challenging to get grants for water and sewer infrastructure. But that way we can do year over year mainline replacements, regardless of what the economy is doing and what the availability of funds are. We just got on a really far, I'm sorry, we just took down such a far tangent and I can see your question.
No, I just have more questions.
Yeah.
No, this was really helpful. I'd love for you to send this out again. It actually probably would have alleviated some questions now if that had been included in the packet. Just as a good reminder for us. And I can't read anything on there. So
I'm sorry.
so forgive the questions, but my question is based on my original question of, an 18% increase this year, 15, 15, and 15 for the next 3 years, and then 5 years or 4 years of 3 and 1 year of 2. Is there a way to spread it out so it's a little bit more palatable over the years? And then as a follow-up to that, how does that impact your projects and their projected construction years?
Yeah,
Because, I mean, lots of people are like, wow, 18%, that's actually a pretty big hit.
Yeah.
And then as we're gonna continue to hit people, if there's a way that we can spread it out so that, like, the cost of living is obviously gonna continue to increase and people's incomes will increase a little bit over time. If we can spread it out, it may not hit people quite so hard.
you know, if I'm remembering correctly, Chantel, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's a
I
good
think what
point.
partially is going on here is that we were looking at water and sewer. And looking holistically at what like a residential goal would be. And that I think was year over year quite similar. But let's get you some better data showing that. I think though, we had no increases to residential sewer in the first year and only increased water intentionally so that people weren't seeing that large hit on their total utility bill. And then,
Well, it looks like sewer went up 12% this year. It's gonna go up 12% for the next 4 years and then
I think you're looking
6%.
at an all class percentage though.
Okay,
What Andy's saying is your residential sewer bill didn't go up at all. It did not change.
Should be 64.45 for the next
Because
3 years.
okay,
the commercial accounts took a pretty significant hit to,
yeah,
to sewer rates.
yeah,
And
okay,
multifamily, I think, had a little hit. But residential did not change. So each class has a different percentage increase that happens.
sure,
But in some of these charts, what he does, Kevin does for you is he puts a summary of each utility. What does it need in order to meet these targets to fund these capital projects? And that's where that 18%, 15%, 15%, that's a across the board, all classes combined percentage.
okay. And maybe that's some of the
Hmm.
highlighted notes, which we can't read.
Yeah,
There's no way for us to click on them and see what those notes say, and so I don't know what those notes say. Maybe that was more clarifying information, but I can't see that.
sorry about that, that's.
It's so weird, because I can see those now.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, I can't in mine.
Okay.
Well, there's
For
a
some
part
reason,
of
but
table ES 15 is present and proposed typical residential monthly bills.
what page are you on?
That's page 21.
Okay.
And that shows a totally different set of percentages.
For
And so that's
sewer,
one thing.
right?
No, so it's all residential monthly bills. So it shows water, sewer, stormwater, total residential bill, dollar change, percent change. And I met with a couple of constituents last week that came and they were like 18, 15, 15, 15. They were like really concerned about that number. And I didn't have this data at the time. I look at this and I'm trying to make sense of it now because I could go back and say, well,
yes.
that is across the board for all user types, but then this suggests that in 2025, percent change is 4.2%,
Well, it's 9, but I'm not sure.
which is a total average or typical would be $6.20 a month change. That sounds a lot better than 18%.
Yeah,
Then in 2026, it shows 8.6%. So I'm not sure how to reconcile the 18, 15, 15 with these numbers. Is that, can you speak to that at all? Is it because this is residential only and doesn't include the commercial?
Big one.
Correct.
Well, that makes a big difference to probably most of the time, I think, because there's more residential customers than there are commercial. We're gonna be hearing from the residential customers that are hit hardest.
Mhm.
This table ES 15 would be really useful for us to have handy,
Yeah,
or at least that we can talk to. It's much less scary.
We should have a deep dive on this document,
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely can.
just to go
Okay.
through this document.
So I guess, to hit on something you said there, from your perspective, you're the most concerned about constituents and residential rates.
Well, that's who we hear from the most. I think
Okay.
everybody has valid concerns.
Oh, absolutely,
And-
yeah.
But this is
Yeah,
the fixed income,
right.
people who are worried about, not being able to live here.
well, and this doesn't reflect the fixed income people that qualify for
Correct.
the discount, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely hear from a lot more residential customers than commercial customers.
Yeah.
I wasn't putting one concern higher than the other.
No. But I guess as we're moving forward with this, I know, last year, we had kind of the example bills to show what that was gonna look like for people. Obviously, this is more the data side of it. is it helpful to bring those types of things in again to kind of show the year over year for some, I'm picking on Zeke, but like Zeke and I sat down together and looked at his bill and what that would look like year over year. Is it helpful? I guess drive for me what you want it to be, what else I can bring to you in addition to this document.
I think dumbing it down into like a 1 or a 2 pager
Okay.
that has really good kind of takeaway for each individual bill. And then I also, like Mike was saying, this table ES15 is super helpful
Yeah.
to see the year over year impacts on a residential bill based on using 4,000 gallons or less.
Yeah.
But seeing how that plays out over the full 10-year span, because it
Yeah.
doesn't include all of those years, and those percentage rates are going to change over time. And then I still have the same questions based on all of that. Is there a way we might be able to spread this out and not really negatively impact all of the projects that you are planning in the next 10 years?
Totally.
Remembering back when we were debating the rates changes, and it was because we were so far behind, because we hadn't done it for so long, we had to do a pretty big jump to get to even close to where we needed to be.
Right.
And I think that's how we ended up where we did.
And again, one of the things we did do was again, go to that conservation pricing and make that much more aggressive towards the higher users. And that's why, again, that 4,000 gallons doesn't need to change as much as that 15 or 20,000 gallon users,
Right.
is where. And so, again, trying to balance all of that so that it's not, but when you take it all together, you get that big number of increase, but it's not that everybody's gonna see that, right? Even when in the residential, because it just depends on your usage.
Speaking of water, I really appreciate the notification system the city has. When you use more than the system believes is your daily average, they automatically send you a warning email, and I think that that's really cool.
Yeah.
I got a warning, but I didn't know why. I was like,
That's why.
Was it the morning after you turned on your sprinkler system?
I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah, if it's different than your normal average
usage.
daily use. Like within.
Yeah, okay.
They're trying to make
range,
sure you
they
didn't
automatically
spring a
warn you
leak.
that you're using more water.
Yeah, sure.
I'm probably reading this wrong, but, because it's been a day. But I'm looking at, table ES-3, present and proposed residential water rates. So is that what we're looking at to be paying? Or is that something else?
No, that's there.
She's on page 5 of the executive summary in Roman numerals.
Yes.
When we were talking about that,
yes,
might be
that
talking
is-
about. Number 9,
Okay,
just a couple more
So
pages.
those are the.
Okay.
That
base
shows
rates.
all of them together just for the
okay, I'll
residential.
just put 9 here. and then I'll-
Oh, it's just,
I'll-
it's just.
I know, but I want to
Oh,
finish.
gotcha, okay.
Forget.
Lots of flags.
So is that, am I looking at this correctly?
You are,
Okay.
that's residential.
Because
water.
I'm looking at the 2025 residential water rates at $79.75. And then on the next page are the present and proposed multifamily water rates, $23.61.
Yes.
We pay for the extra water that we water, so that's not even an issue for me. We pay for it, we know that. What is the issue is we pay $56.14 a month more than they do.
And I know we've talked.
And when I flip over to page I, whatever it is, it's for, no, not that one, the sewer rates on page 11 or whatever that is. We pay the residential customers $64.45, and the multifamily pays $35.52. A difference of $25.02. So we almost pay in those two things, the $100 more than multifamily. You can't tell me that if there's 2 people in my house and 2 people in the multifamily, that we aren't using about the same amount and flushing the toilet about the same amount. So I think it's egregious that we're paying this much more than the multifamily, and I think it should be changed. This was my issue the last time we did this 6 years ago, whatever it was, and see how far I got.
Yeah, and I really understand. I know that's really challenging, frustrating, and I really do understand your perspective where you feel frustrated with that. And ultimately, these rates are based on data, and so this is evaluated based off the amount of infrastructure that's required for that one service.
The
So
what?
it's the amount of infrastructure that's required for that one service. So a multifamily unit is 3 or more units, and that's the cost per unit. And so I know, if you remember, we talked with Kevin about this quite a bit at the end of 24 and some of the special meetings we had. And it is just a fundamentally different cost when we're looking at serving a multifamily unit versus serving a residential home.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't. I think that there's two people, the toilet flushing and whatever is about the same. It's not out of proportion. It doesn't matter if you got a toilet in your bathroom, a toilet, in another bathroom, you still only have two people.
But that's usage, and you're right, and that's a usage cost. These are your monthly charges for the providing the service to you, getting them and keeping them to you. And that's where she's saying the infrastructure that's needed to get it to us, one multifamily is substantially less than so it's say it's 20 units. Then to get it to 20 homes costs a lot more infrastructure. So it's the infrastructure costs that are significantly different. The buy-in, if you would, to the system than it is the usage. So it is, you're right, two people are going to use roughly the same amount, but how it gets to them is the difference.
Well, it's been getting to me for a lot of years. I think it's paid for by
I
now.
understand that, yeah.
Okay, I don't agree.
And there's a break.
I'll be a no every time.
Yeah,
Well, what is the difference in just, in the difference in the line size is probably negligible, or maybe one little bit bigger of a waistline for a 3-unit multifamily. So really the cost to provide that line, and it's almost like if you needed a driveway, you need to pave a driveway into your house. You're paying for the whole driveway. But if you have a triplex that needs a driveway, you're splitting the cost of that driveway between all 3 units. So it's the same driveway, maybe a little bit wider because you have two-way traffic, and that's a little bit more if you add it up. But per unit, it's significantly cheaper than you putting a driveway into your house because you're the only one paying for that driveway.
But the other person that has the multifamily unit is the only one paying for that driveway.
Each unit pays their share, which is less than you would pay for your house. It's because it's
Same with
economy.
the
of
line
scale.
coming in, they're splitting the same line.
They are running 3 lines back out to the main. They're running 1 line out that one driveway, all 3 units using the 1 line. For your house, for our houses, we are the only ones using that 1 line. So that cost for that line for us is more expensive because
But it's still 3 people using water. And it doesn't matter whose house you're in and what line it's coming out of. It's still 3 people and 3 people.
Right.
Or 2 people and 2 people.
yeah.
This is not a usage, it's the line itself. It's not how often
Yeah.
the toilet.
Well, how long do you have to pay for the line, for God's sake?
Well, so I know Kevin, like Mike's example makes it really clear, hopefully, like why it decreases the proportional cost per person. Another example would be if we have a multifamily unit with 20 units. If those are single family homes, there would be a service line and a meter serving each one of them. And when Kevin walked us through the details of that, that also included every single one of those being a separate utility account. So there is a bill for each one of those. It like included the staffing time for Chantel and her team to bill them for that. The maintenance costs for us to, when you have issues, to repair or replace the service line and meter, all of those things factor into that. So I understand where you're coming from, and that's where we now have the base rate side of things, which they do pay less for the base rate. And then we also have the consumption side of things for how much water they're actually using. And I know we can keep talking about this one. I know we're probably not gonna get to a place that we feel good about it tonight, but I am curious. I know we have about 10 minutes left on this topic. Just what other kind of high level things you want me to see, what other bigger questions, needs you have?
How long have we been deficient in funding these accounts, because I think that's also really
That's a long
helpful information to share with the community when they
Yeah.
question why the rates are going up. I'd love to know how long we've been kind of kicking the can down the road.
And it really starts from never having funded the replacement of its infrastructure when we put it in the ground. Like a lot of our mains were put in the sixties and seventies. And so, I think our water system plan recommends like I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head, it's a 1% or 5% replacement year over year of service lines. But because we've never historically done that, I would almost argue it's been since the inception of our water system that we haven't been setting aside funds for the replacement of those. I'll look to Chantel, I don't know if you know the
Well,
history there, but
been here nearly 20 years and we always pass rates that barely meet operations and maintenance. There's a random capital oopsie-doo, like the emergency water line on Pine Street that had to be fixed. Luckily, we had the reserves for that. I don't know if you remember, but I've mentioned it before. There was one year, and it was so probably more than a decade ago, that I rolled the water fund over with a negative amount, and I had to give it an interfund loan from the general fund just to get it through January. And then the revenue started coming in, but for us to be that low in a fund balance, you can't operate a massive utility like this, like that.
Well, you can't do any improvement.
Yeah.
You can't, yeah.
Yeah.
You
Correct.
might be able to operate it, but you can't do any capital improvement.
Exactly. So over the time that I've been here under Joel's administration, we started on financial policies. We created those. We defined minimum reserves for cash flow. We've created those. So we've been taking baby steps for quite some time. This current 6 year is a very significant amount of capital improvements. It's large and, and I think you're on it. We can't afford to just keep hitting it. We need to figure out how to spread it just a little bit more to make it more palatable.
I think the more information that we're able to provide the
Yeah.
community,
okay, yeah.
So,
well, and first, making sure that we understand it.
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of like foundational questions right now coming out of all of this where we don't all understand all of the details. So we can't communicate that when the community asks questions. But I think understanding a lot of the basics associated with what are we doing? How are we funding it? What schedule are we on?
Yeah.
Is there a way to modify that so that it doesn't hit the community quite so hard in such a short period of time? And then what are the negative outcomes associated with something like that?
Absolutely, and we can get that to you, because I think that's the bulk of what is in that spreadsheet. Hopefully, and then, I'll email it, like, please give me feedback, if it's missing things or it's not clear, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna assume what I'm giving you makes sense, and I have no idea that it does. Clint, did you have some?
well, with everything that I'm reading and that I'm hearing, I mean, it's what I do. I boil down lots of information to oversimplified narratives. But what I'm hearing from you essentially is that we are making up for 30, 40, give me the number, 30, 40 years of deferred maintenance within the next 6 years. And it's not because of want to, it's because we have. It's a 10-year plan, but a lot of those increases are coming within the next 6 years. So when I'm thinking of elevator speeches, that's kind of where I'm going.
Yeah.
Let me know if I'm off base.
Not off base.
Okay.
And I think,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, you obviously can spread that out further. It just doesn't. I mean, it gains you political, I think, capital, but it doesn't change the reality, and it just delays that reality so that those fixes that we're trying to get caught up on are just going to be kicked further, which is also has a cost, to it. So people both want the streets fixed, which means the infrastructure under them fixed, but then also don't want the costs going up. So something gives that, you kick it down a little bit. And maybe that's the compromise. You don't, extend it as far as we've been doing, but you also, do a little bit more, but again, there's a cost both ways.
And really quick, I will say something and then Shane can do it something. To be really clear, it's not that we're seeing everything in the next 6 years. We're literally just getting ourselves back on track for some of these upfront like projects that have to happen in the next 6 years. And then setting ourselves up with that year-over-year $600,000 for us to continue investing in it. But it's by no means like gonna get everything back up to where we need it. Not even close.
Right, and that was my question. I thought, didn't we talk about, like if we didn't do all these increases, for the first 3 years, if we spread them out, like, I thought we had discussed, what projects we would have to forfeit or postpone. Didn't we talk about that?
I feel like we've had so many conversations on this, I don't remember this.
And I thought that's why we
but-
chose, that's why we adopted these
Yeah.
percentages or.
I think when I send you this will be familiar,
Okay.
like what these projects are and what the initial ones
Yeah.
are, because I think you're right, I think that did drive, the timeline of these initial
Yeah,
projects, yeah.
And that's what Andy spent her first year plus doing, is getting all of this, figured out into the worst case and what needs and what the priorities need to be. And
I mean, I know, like, I'm looking at year 2028 and it's $50 more than, or $60 more than what we're paying now. In 3 years, like that's,
I think it is,
That's a
like,
lot.
that is a really big deal, that's a
Yeah.
substantial increase for people.
yeah,
And I live in town, I pay the rates too, I understand,
Right.
and also looking on this side, we also need to have a reliable water and sewer system for our residents and our businesses alike.
and better roads,
And
like,
better roads.
yeah, I mean, it's,
I wanna work with you, I wanna find a balance that everyone feels good about, but also that we can move forward with the improvements that we need to make. We can have a reliable system.
To answer your question earlier, like what do we want, I'm just thinking about like, what do I want, and I think the use case scenarios are good. Just like all of us keep talking about 18, 15, 15, but what does that actually mean for people and in businesses? I mean, and I don't know how hard it is to break it down. The data is there, right? If we can look at like the typical user, this says present and proposed typical residential monthly bills. Like, again, not nearly as scary as 18, 15, 15, but what is like somebody who used up 7,500?
Yeah.
What does it look like in the summer if you use 10,000 gallons? I mean, and how many people do that? I don't know how typical that is, but if somebody comes to me screaming and says, oh, my bill went this, I used 10,000 gallons, like, well, you're like one of 10 people who uses that much water in the city, I mean, it's sorry, but nobody else is doing that. And not that, and shaming them or anything, but it's like, if we have different user scenarios that we can show, or at least understand it ourselves and say that this is what you can expect.
well, it's hard to know what everyone's doing with their water, like.
well, didn't you guys use yours in selfies?
Right,
So we used to
Yeah,
wait for
yeah.
water.
Hey, my sprinkler system is broken.
right, exactly, well, that's the
It's a
thing, like
broken
people.
system but it gave
Yeah.
you a
Yeah.
look at, here's two
People
scenarios.
might have
One
leaks,
that's,
that they don't know about, I mean.
Yeah.
So like, it sounds like, I guess I'm hearing a couple things, one, you wanting to see what a bill looks like, but it sounds like you might also want to hear what kind of that use distribution is across users to some extent.
Or come up with some user scenarios for different usage rates, just
Okay,
just
like
kind
a
of.
high and low
Yeah,
type
and
thing.
based on real people, like, you say, hey, this is one of our median users.
Yeah, okay.
This is somebody, if you have a big garden, I know that's one concern people have. I won't be able to water my garden, right? Well, I don't even know how you identify those people, but, I water my grass and we irrigate you could use mine if you want. I don't even know if I've ever gone over 7,500, but we use our irrigation, right?
Absolutely.
So, just so I can say, well, this is what happened to me. At least I can speak to that. And I can talk about in detail what my usage is like.
And are you thinking like just residential with those scenarios?
Everything.
Well, I think you should break down
Everything.
restaurants,
Yeah.
hotels.
Multifamily,
No,
So-
just kidding.
Well,
I'm trying to do something reasonable that
I
we
did
can just.
do that,
point to.
yeah. I had a little bit of the, so I
Yeah,
can bring those back and let you see those. I had a small mom and pop shop, a medium restaurant, a large restaurant, small hotel, large hotel, you know, I had all those different ones and this is what their total bill would look like.
A brewery.
Yeah. Did you have
He
any,
has a contract. That one has its own contract
Own
and
contract.
they get
High
billed every
water
month.
did you have any multifamily?
I did have
Example?
one multifamily in there. Mhm. Yeah, I think I had a 3 or 4 unit that was in that scenario.
And it
How
shows what they used to pay and what that same usage would be now.
It showed what they were gonna be paying, I think,
Okay.
but we can do it side by side.
Was that more than a residential?
Well, I had several residentials, because I had 3/4 inch meter, and I think I had a 1 inch meter. And then I had a small, medium, and high of like downtown business. And a restaurant and a hotel, and 1 or 2 hotels.
I was just trying to maybe help Sharon, try and compare,
Yep.
what an actual residential versus multifamily bill looks like.
And I did specifically have a multifamily in there that was compared right next to the
Yeah.
3/4 inch
Okay.
residential unit. Yeah, and I think I used a four unit, because that's the break-even point. A 3 is slightly below,
Right,
but a 4 unit pays more.
right.
And they're both still getting 1 3/4 inch meter or 1 inch meter.
Right.
But because you have the 4 units paying in, it just has to be somewhere between 3 and 4 to go over what a residential, single family residential pays. No, these are great ideas.
That's why we wanted to start the conversation early this year and not
We're
get
looking
down
at
to the end of the
plan.
year and going,
We need more, yeah, we're gonna raise the rate.
yeah, right.
We can talk about it for the next 6 months, don't worry. Okay, well, I know we're out of time. Any other last follow-up items on that?
Do we need, as a starter to this, just kind of a walkthrough of this document? I know you can read it. I've read it. This is my 4th, 6-year study I've read, but is that something that would be helpful to just go through it? And
Yeah, like Ann said, maybe
understand?
maybe a condensed version might be.
Okay,
Well, over time, we can get you condensed for the public, for your speaking points. But it's important for you to understand what's in this.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh, yeah.
What's here, how does it flow, how does it work? Because we do have to close out the contract with this consultant.
Mhm.
And ultimately, we accept this document. I'm not saying that means you have to accept and pass the rates every year as proposed in this document, but we do have to accept this document,
Yeah.
as final, because the contract ends. So
I think that'd be helpful. Really.
maybe a starting point, maybe that's what we could have Kevin come and help just walk through how this document's laid out.
okay, yeah,
Not go into details of what's in it, but actually walk through it and go, this is your summary, this is where you'll find this data, this here is where you'll find your capital that you're looking for. Just kind of show you where the secrets are in it. There's a lot of information in this document.
Because I had a question on ES3 where we're no longer using the 7,500 gallons, right?
I saw that in there, I was looking at it going.
What's that doing there?
Why does it say 75?
So that was one of my questions, like, how do I,
but that's only in the present rate,
And that's why,
if you see that, so,
yeah.
there's that row, but then there's only a column in present rate, because then
Right.
we shifted structure, that's why it's not shown further
It
out.
doesn't show.
Yeah, so ES3 actually shows your first 4,000.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
I know it's really hard, because we made so many changes last year, not only did we increase rates, but we also completely changed the structure, so there's a lot of
right,
moving parts and pieces there too.
okay.
Okay, well, thank you, I really appreciate the feedback on both those items, it's really helpful to just know where you guys are at.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Yep.
I think.
All right, we're ready to move.
All right, John.
Move on. John.
So, Council, John, I'm like to introduce John Sutherland. He, as you know, operates the Leavenworth Adventure Park. Don't hold that against him. But
You want to be incognito, right?
So he approached me with the idea of licensing the rights of the Miracle Town book for developing a musical. Turns out that we do indeed own the licensing. That information is in the packet. And John is here today to pitch his musical idea to you.
Not tap dancing, I'm not singing.
Oh, come on.
there. You want me up there?
Yes, sure.
Okay. And can outside people have to talk? And they,
Yeah, we can promote them to talk if you have.
Yeah,
So you got something you want.
so Vanessa and Christian should be in there somewhere, and they need to be able to speak pretty good. But I just wanna talk a little bit about how this actually came about. So what you guys probably don't know, among other things, I produced theater in Seattle. I have a real passion for the arts and specifically for theater, and I was really compelled. So in 2013, I started my own professional theater company. I did produce 2 shows in Seattle, both regional premieres. The first one I partnered with ACT Theater, and then I did another one independently. So I really love it, and I had eventually hoped to produce the theater here. That has always been kind of my intention. My theater company is Side Country Theater. I'm in the process now of resurrecting it. So I'm working on that, the administrative side of that. So when I moved to town, I obviously knew generally about the transformation of the town into this Bavarian theme, but I read books, Miracle Town obviously being one of them. I met a lot of people, and as I did that, and I just learned more and more and more about the history of this town, to me, I'll just tell you, I never got the shopping team, but I did get the musical theater team, and it like screamed musical to me. I think the mountains to me have always been inspiring. My background is originally in the ski industries, so to me, this is an inspiring place for this, and so I wanted to do. I just saw it. I don't know how else to see it, but I just felt really compelled to do something like this. And this book was a great starting point, and we're going to address the book itself in a second. But and so I had to find out who had the rights. It took me quite a long time actually, and I actually found out when I was talking to Matt from the museum. And so once I found that out, and this all happened in the same night, by the way, Selby was at the same event, and so I started talking to Selby to kind of open a conversation with the city. So I want to talk really quickly about the process itself. This process does not, assuming we get the rights to do this process of creating theater does not happen in a vacuum. It's not like you give me the rights and then I'm gone. This is a process that involves the public. It involves anybody who wants to be involved with it. At a minimum, after a year, which is kind of what we think will take us to get to the first kind of draft, essential full draft of the show. There will be what's called a reading, which is kind of a music stand reading. All the performers up there on the stand. There's usually just a piano. The creative team is there, and they just do the show standing there essentially. The public is invited to that process. The reason the public is invited to that process is so that they can provide direct feedback to the creative team and ask questions very specifically. So it's not like people that have a stake in this town will be able to participate in the process. So again, it's not in a vacuum, and it's not ironically with the story or anything else. Everybody can be involved in this process, and in fact, I actually was thinking with original donors or something like that along the way, as Kristen writes a couple of songs, or Vanessa writes a part of the book, we would be touching bases with them and doing reads and playing music as we go along. So again, the process doesn't happen in a vacuum. Theater is an incredibly collaborative process, just by definition. So I kind of want to assure you of that. We plan to definitely audition locally first. That is my goal. And I also want to, if we eventually get there, have a premiere production in town here. You know, I could do it elsewhere, but the goal is to have it right at the festival, frankly. Because this is about a celebration of not just town, but really the area and the people in it, so it really needs to happen right down here. So let me just really briefly introduce the team. So Crystal Dawn is my director. She's also been my theater mentor. Her sister sadly had a stroke today, so she's not with us tonight. But Crystal has been my mentor since the very first show I produced, and she introduced me to Vanessa and Christian, who are incredible talents. I'm not going to read their bios. You have their bios on the back of that document. They are beyond qualified to do this, and are incredible talents, awarded talents, and I would just like to introduce them. Vanessa is, I'll just read the first paragraph of her bio. Has been working as a teacher, director, actress, writer, and script doctor in Seattle for over 25 years. Her edits of Shakespeare plays have been produced by Seattle Shakespeare, the Great River Shakespeare Festival, and several area schools in the Seattle area. Vanessa has written 2 full-length plays, Help Your Daughter, and Kind of Math Problem, and The Trick of Love. Christian is a multi-hyphenate theater artist and the recipient of the Cleveland Award for Musical Theater Librettist and BMI Harry Harrington Award for Outstanding Creative Achievement in Songwriting. He also served as songwriting artist in residence with Oriental Dreamworks, Pearl Studio. And Christian was born, I think, and he will correct me if I'm wrong, Kellogg, Idaho. So he kind of knows the rural part of this world, which I think is a real benefit. Plus, he then was raised in Seattle, but then spent many years in New York, but is back in Seattle now. And so they both have a real love for the Northwest. And anyway, I'm going to let them read and talk a little bit about each of their sections. Vanessa writes the book for the show, the story, and Christian is the composer of lyricist. So, are you guys ready? Are you on?
Yeah.
We're on.
Yeah. Okay.
First of all, thank you for including us this evening. It's really fun to, first of all, be zooming into your meeting. And we appreciate you giving us time. Want to start off by being clear that what our roles are if we go forward with the musical, which we hope we do, because we're very excited by the subject matter. Christian and I would be working as a writing team. And in musical theater world, I would be writing what's called the book. And the book is essentially the dialogue that is spoken. Go ahead, Christian.
Yeah. So I pick up what Vanessa creates then and convert some of that into lyrics. We lovingly call it cannibalizing. You know, I take everything that she's got, and part of the joy of musicals is there's this relationship between the songs and the spoken word. And so a lot of my role, in addition to writing music and the lyrics, is how do we economize, particularly as we look at this story that spans over 150 years, as we're looking at it now, how do we economize all of these significant events and transition moments in Leavenworth's history so that, you know, when we spend 9 to 14 minutes in a particular time period with a particular group of people or couple of people, or even just one person on stage, how do we feel like we get to know them in a deep and meaningful way and feel the impact that they had in this area?
And when we first got started, we were introduced to the project through Crystal, and Crystal handed me the book Miracle Town. And okay, started reading the book, and then realized there was so much more to this story. And so we have done some research, just top of the icicle. And so part of what we want to do is not only get the rights to the book, but also, you know, come to Leavenworth, talk to the people of Leavenworth, talk to people who have history that can tell us stories, tell us about their impressions of Leavenworth and what brought them there. Maybe they're from a third generation family. It's been in Leavenworth for a long, long time, and we want to meet those people, hear those stories, but also go to the museum, ask for access to any resources available to us. So it wouldn't just be about this book, but we do realize that that the city owns the rights to books. So it's part of the process is just to be able to access that. I want to say that it was really important to us when we first started talking about this, that this story for us is a 150-year-old story. And our musical would start like, not at the very, very beginning, maybe, but go back quite some time and really talk about what brought people to Leavenworth over the many years, starting in the mid 1800s. And what's clear and what is a common thread throughout this whole piece is that the land brought people to Leavenworth. The mountains brought people, the water, the resources, and also the opportunity that came with the land, that came with the resources and the water. And so our story would be like in chapters, honoring and celebrating the tenacity of people that really like took risks in coming here to go on an adventure, maybe left everything behind to try out something new, to be a part of mining for gold or be a part of the new timber industry. Maybe they were helping to lay railroad tracks. So our story would start in the 1800s and go all the way to present day. And the thing that's constant in our story is the thing that's changes but keeps coming back is the land. And when we talk about the land, we again are talking about the mountains and the water. And that is the constant throughout, and also is actually a character in our piece. I like to think about, when we talk about the land, about the ups and downs of mountains or the ups and downs of rivers, which would also mirror the ups and downs, the highs and lows of the characters who are, trying to go on their own adventures. Kristen, do you want to talk a little bit about the music?
Yeah, at this early stage, I don't have anything to share with you to be like, it sounds like this. But in terms of the spirit of the music, we're definitely looking at a smaller ensemble that would be on stage. So audience members who come would get to see live musicians, which is very in the spirit of how things flow in Leavenworth and events that take place there now. But the tone is very folk mixed with pop rock. Of course, musical theater and how we tell story through song is a part of that. If you're familiar with pieces like Sea Rock City or Floyd Collins, those have similar feels, similar musical architecture that would sound like what this show will sound like. And then my background is in vocal jazz, particularly vocal jazz ensembles. And so my shows have a lot of ensemble singing, dense harmonies and rich harmonies that come from the singers. So definitely a lot of notes coming at you from the stage simultaneously. And the real goal there is, as we've talked about the show, something that has been really striking to us is the perseverance of the people of Leavenworth and the earnestness and joy that comes from the earnestness of this community. And so really having that represented in how the music hits the ear and the emotional experience that people get to have as they listen. Because at the end of the day, music brings us emotion. That's what makes it different than just speaking poetry. So that's a big part of what I will strive to do over this next year of writing.
So we could talk and talk, but we'll end there. And if you have questions for us, we'd be pleased to answer them.
Want me to just wrap this up?
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful to them. Thank you. You actually articulating what I could probably never say. But in a couple things on this document, when they say it's our town meets Hades Town, it's not Our Town Meets Helltown. It's more, Hadestown is a show, one Best Musical a few years ago. It was written by a folk singer-songwriter named Anais Mitchell, who was from Vermont. It actually kind of came out of coffee houses, and this whole idea of the show is about Orpheus and Eurydice, and it's kind of a folk musical opera. And in that show, there is a band on stage, and it's told and they're the kind of a Greek chorus character. They kind of envision the band as that character. So they're talking more about structure, not Elton. So I kind of wanted to clarify.
Good clarification. Good clarification.
So, did I screw anything up, you guys? Okay, thanks. So let me know if you have any more.
Right. All right. We appreciate it. Thanks.
I do, but I can maybe call you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just give me a call there
Sure.
anytime. All right. Thanks, you guys. I really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I
Thank
get
you so
just
much for having us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Would the council be interested in licensing the rights?
I'd be interested. I have a question for Vanessa, actually. Sorry, you just turned your camera off. You can keep your camera off if you want. I know you have not written the book yet, but I'm just kind of fascinated. When we talk about plots, when we talk about narrative arcs, we talk about protagonists and antagonists. What do you see as a central conflict in the story? I mean, is it you keep coming back to the land? Is it the challenge of the area and the differing times? Is it a person in each time? Like, as you look at each specific, area, and I realize we may not have drilled down that far. I'm just fascinated with the artistic challenge of depicting the history of the region.
Yeah, so I think, thank you for that question. I'm actually also from Washington State and have been to Leavenworth many times. And I think that what's an interesting question to answer is, how did this get to be? Like, how did this town get to be what it is now? And I'm talking about somebody in present day visiting Leavenworth and going like, how did it shape up like this? And that question is obviously a really detailed, complicated question that goes back 150 years at least. And so part of what we're doing is like really like moving the curtain aside and sharing with people that it wasn't actually just one thing, and it didn't just happen in the 1960s. It's about a kind of a history of a sense of character, the kind of person that comes to Leavenworth or comes to this area and is ready to take on a challenge. And maybe, and like I said before, they're drawn to the area because of the natural beauty of the land and the mountains and the opportunity of adventure. But I don't think that it's a situation about people, like there's not a good guy and a bad guy in this story. It's more about there are people that have big ideas, but they can't do it by themselves, right? And that you get a kind of collection, a community of people that works out problems. And sometimes, those problems are, wow, mining for gold and finding gold, or making a lot of money, in timber or with the railroads. But then, when they move the railroads and they take it out of the area, and part of the reason they take it out of the area is because nature and the land says, no more. No, this isn't working here. So if there's a conflict, it's kind of the tug and pull of being human in a very kind of natural world that sometimes nature plays along and sometimes nature does not play along. And then we have to ask ourselves, all right, then what next? Do we listen to nature? And if we do, good. Do we?
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
We need to.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that was my question. You were answering it perfectly. Thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate it.
But that's a little more detailed than we can
Totally.
need to do at this point. But the question that Selby had was, is there interest for us to bring something to you to say,
Mhm.
let's get some rights and then let them work?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great, thank you. We've also got one more item that we would like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Mike, thank you for your patience. Mike, thanks for your patience.
Okay.
We did put you at the end, knowing that you're gonna be here for the beginning of the next meeting. Just
So I was just gonna go over, give you the background on this proposal, which is really just a suggestion. So in March of this year, I sat down with, Selby and Maggie Bowles, along with Chief O'Brien. And, we talked about many subjects, but, it came up, we started discussing, the, home hardening money that, that program that the city had been, running. I know there were some limitations and things like that, and so as we're kind of spitballing, Chief O'Brien thought that the city could potentially get more bang for their buck, investing that money in fuels reduction. And what that would look like, is kind of us telling you some of the lessons that we've learned along the way, to kind of give you a timeline and what that might look like. So the proposal he laid out is a 5-year plan. That would use that funding instead of doing home hardening, you would do this. And the goal is to reduce the potential for wildfire or conflagration through the reduction of fuels that are intermixed between the homes and businesses and on public property. I will preface this by saying private property owners in the city of Leavenworth, the fire district can come out to their home. If they call us and ask us, we have funding, we will do fuels reduction there. But this could be for both residents of the city, but also the public spaces. That FEMA and a lot of our grants won't let us work on public land. But the timeline for something like that would be that this year, we would work with whatever staff you guys decide would be the most appropriate to kind of evaluate some areas within the city and set priorities of where these fuel reduction needs are the greatest, where we can get the most effect out of them. Local infrastructure obviously being the highest thing. We want to keep power and water working in the event of a disaster. 26 through 28, either a city crew or hired contractor, I'm sure you guys would want to figure that out, would conduct a fuel reduction. The city, as well as if you needed guidance from us, we'd be more than happy to look at things, make sure that they came out the way that we wanted. And then 29 and 30 focus on hazard tree removal. You would set that up with home or business owners to remove trees that we've identified as hazardous that could either, that are a threat during a fire or they could fall in a storm. At the end of that time, you'd want to evaluate everything that we did, present it back to council, and then you can consider, you know, how well did it work, right? Mike is familiar. What did we set out to do? What did we actually do? What can we do better? Type of an evaluation. And that's where you know, again, in this, it was the thought that it would be that instead of that 50,000 going to home hardening, it could go to fuels reduction. After 5 years, maybe we got really good results. For a little frame of reference, when I started, we were putting about $3,000 a year into fuels prevention, and we weren't doing any fuels reduction at that time. Now, between prevention of wildfire and our fuels program, we're at about $160,000 a year. So we've continued to kind of up our commitment every year. A lot of those funds are grant funds, so just to be upfront. But, you know, we just thought that after talking to Selby, that this could be a program that could really, you know, instead of doing home hardening works, and I'm not saying that home hardening is not a good thing that people should be doing. But with this, you could do a little bit for everybody instead of doing a lot for one person. And that was sort of our thought process on it. But, you know, whatever you decide, we're here to support. You know, we'll answer any questions, be available for whatever you guys need. But that was Chief's idea.
How much does 50,000 a year get for home hardening? Like roughly, would you say like how many homes?
I wouldn't be able to speak too well that. I think it's what 1 to 2 a year.
yeah, we've granted between 1 and 2 projects a
So
year.
1 to 2.
And it's generally replacing someone's roof or siding or deck. The issues that I had with that program, which I asked council to let us put a stop on, was the fact that there was no string attached. So there's nothing preventing someone from getting $50,000 from the city, improving their house, and immediately putting it on the market and making that $50,000 back.
Yeah, right.
Mike, what would you As far as, so if you're considering fuel reduction within city limits, what would be an example of that?
Around Enchantment Park, Blackbird Island, there's some small stuff that I'm not sure who owns it. It might be city property. I think that's something we could drive around and look at, but there's some pockets of dense fuel. Some of it's probably on, private property, some of it's gonna be public, and I think the city, their role will be to focus on those public spaces that they own. Because again, it's difficult for, us to do fuel reduction, number one, capacity, but also that FEMA, won't give us money to work on public lands.
Okay.
What is Rattlesnake Hill? That's public?
School district.
School district owns part of it.
Yeah, public and private, actually.
Okay.
Which rattlesnake.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know they own the park. We did a fuels project through, the Washington DNR Ready Set Go program. I think in 2018, 2019. That's how we did that project right on it.
Would private property also be eligible if they wanted it done?
I think that would, be up to you, but right now, private property owners are eligible with us. So if they have fuel reduction they want to get done, all they gotta do is
Let you
give us a call, get on the list, and we'll get the ball rolling.
And you currently have capacity for that. You're not,
We have capacity for 40 properties a year, which right now I think we're full for 25, but that program is gonna run 40 a year for 5 years. So we're hoping to do 200 properties over the next 5 years. That's so far what's funded by me.
A quick question. If we were gonna say, focus on firewising Blackbird Island, for an example, because I know that would be very difficult for us to fight a fire if one broke out there. Would $50,000 get Blackbird Island firewised?
No.
Okay.
But you could do a lot of work along the trails and things like that, just to make it safer. Obviously Blackbird is an island. Our big concern with that is it's dense. If you do get a fire established down there or another wildfire starts a spot fire there, it's gonna put off a lot of embers. But I don't know how many acres Blackbird Island is, but it's probably more than you can treat for $50,000. So that's not a ton of money, but you can definitely do a lot of good work with $50,000.
So just to make sure I'm understanding this, don't laugh. $250,000, is that what the city has given the fire? No, so,
So this is to replace currently what we have in our budget, $50,000 a year for this home hardening grant
yes,
program.
yeah, I know about
The
that.
proposal is to instead of spending those monies on private property, improving individual homes, spending that money to do fuels reduction throughout the city.
Over
Would we
5
want to
years.
keep some of it, like $10,000 for inside? If there was a project inside the city limits?
No, all of this money would go to reduce fuels within the city limits.
Oh, all of it?
Yeah.
And where's it going now? Nowhere?
Well, we're not granting the money right now. This is the second year we have.
Okay, so we
Had it
would
done
grant the
right.
money to do the work inside the city limits, not
Right.
jump stick kind of.
No, this will all be within city.
Okay. Thanks.
And mostly again on our property.
So Waterfront Park, Enchantment Park, Blackbird Island.
So why aren't we doing something?
Well,
Well, I need council's direction to move forward with this change.
Okay,
Maybe we should do,
moving forward personally.
what about if we increase it? I mean, do 75,000.
It's your money.
It can't hurt, I would say to, once you figure out who's gonna run the program, whether they're gonna be employees or contractors, you can nail that down. I would say, it's good to evaluate and kind of build year to year, just so you don't, throwing money at situations can work, but as well as I do, right? To get rid of those inefficiencies, if you build year on year, we've had a lot of success with that, and we feel like we spend each dollar really, it gets a lot done for each dollar.
Okay.
So I would think that that's something you want to look at either before you start or at the evaluation period. If, is $50,000 that started 7 years ago, is that still $50,000? So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to see the evaluation period, to see what we could do with that money.
Council likes the idea of changing where we spend those
Focus.
monies on for fire projects, then I'll work with Mike and bring something more concrete.
okay.
all right,
Thank you.
we'll take a brief break before we start again. I call the meeting of Leavenworth City Council for May 27th to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. See?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Sharon Waters.
Clint Strand.
Ann Hesper.
Zeke Reister.
Shane Fair?
Mike Bedard.
And I would entertain a motion to excuse Councilmember McMaster from this meeting.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously. We've got a consent agenda. Anybody want to move?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Shane, seconded by Sharon. All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously. Before we get into items, I would remind that our rules here are that we are respectful to each other. We acknowledge that it's okay to disagree. Prior to making comments, you must be recognized by the chair. We ask you to come forward and state your name and address. Please address the council as a whole and not address any individuals. And keep your comments focused on the topic that's being discussed unless you're addressing items not on the agenda. And with that, we would move on to comments from the public on items that aren't on the agenda. Does anybody here wish to address us? Yes, come forward and name and address and tell us what you would like to say.
Hello, I'm Andy Barber, 1272 Shore Street. I wanted to talk about the walking path that's just behind City Hall here, behind the parking lot. I'm sure most of you are aware of it. We own the property, my wife and I have owned that property for 15 years and I've tried to develop it, but it's tricky. And so we put it on the market and now it's pending. We have a developer that has done quite a few projects, mostly on the other side of the mountains, but he's proposing workforce housing, 30 units, affordable units, one building. And the property's right next to the walking path, if you're familiar with that mall. So he's wanting to work with the city to redesign that walking path. I'll go ahead and just read a letter that I sent out to the city last week. So we've owned that property for 15 years, but we've been in the area almost 30 years. This trail has been a wonderful access point to the city for us and countless citizens and visitors alike. Since that portion of Woodward Street was vacated sometime in the 90s and the path was installed. At that time, the city provided an easement for the principal use of an access path with the right and responsibility to continually maintain it. Over the years, we've watched people walk up and down the path. We have also watched several people fall while walking on the path due to its steepness and disrepair. We've observed young children have trouble and lose control on foot, bikes, skateboards, and scooters. We have seen elderly and handicapped folks trying to use the path, which just makes us cringe. In addition, the path gets little, if any, maintenance in the winter, which increases the danger exponentially. Overall, the safety and functionality of the walking path is in question. It currently is in violation of the city's comprehensive plan in various ways. Parks and Recreation Policy 1.1 of the comprehensive plan states to provide and maintain support facilities, including restrooms, parking paths, trails, lighting, security measures for safe and accessible use of the system. And then Policy 1.2 talks about the ADA accessibility within the system. Goal number 2 for Parks and Recreation, encourage use of trails, parks, and natural areas to promote active living. Policy 2.2, connect residential neighborhoods to each other as well as to nearby schools, parks, recreational trails, and community facilities via a trail network. Based on the walking path's volume of use, lack of safety and accessibility, in light of the city's comprehensive plan, as concerned citizens, myself and many others, we urge the city to work with the current developer and future developers in our community for the redesign specifically of this walking path to be a safe and proper access, an amenity that the community deserves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Anybody else have comments? All right. Seeing none, we will move on, and I would like to read a proclamation for June being Pride Month. I think this proclamation in this time and in this day is more critical and more important than it ever has been. We've passed it now and honored this month for the last couple of years here. This is a proclamation to declare and celebrate the National Commemorative Month of June as LGBTQ+ Pride Month. Whereas the City of Leavenworth City Council considers it in the best public interest to support inclusion and diversity. And whereas the federal government has established the national commemorative months, including June as LGBTQ+ Pride Month. And whereas the struggle for LGBTQ+ community for basic civil and human rights continues to provide inspiration to all. And whereas every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the mayor and city of Leavenworth City Council the month of June as LGBTQ+ Pride Month. The city of Leavenworth encourages everyone to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists, to respect the rights of all people, and to celebrate diversity in our city. Signed this 27th day of May, 2025 by myself as mayor. All right.
Question.
Yeah.
Okay, we did something a couple years back.
We've done
It
it.
wasn't just Pride Month, and so now that like goes away and it's all everything or what?
Yeah, it was a celebration of Pride Month.
Okay,
And yeah, right. That's been we've done this now for the last couple of years, so.
okay.
We will move on and you will see the Pride banner outside City Hall during June. Number 10 is public safety reports, and we've got Randy Lake here.
Evening, how are you?
Doing well.
I think I owe you a couple months of hours. March, it was 864 with 27 foot patrol. April was 772, 24-foot patrol. I'll catch this up. Obviously, it's not in May yet, so I'll post it next month. Getting busier. Thefts are on the rise. This weekend, there was some vehicle prowls and bicycle thefts. They caught 2 from out of town. They did catch them. And
Nice.
Back. That was good. A couple of weeks ago, there was a theft at Cashmere with the known suspect out of Wenatchee that decided to fight my deputies and hit one of them in the inner thigh quite hard because where it ripped his pants. They both ended up going to the hospital. Front. It's just starting to pick up, not really a city thing, but the search and rescues are picking up. Hills. The thefts are starting to pick up, getting busier. Anybody got any questions?
Have you had any search and rescues that bicycle?
Pardon me?
Have you had any search and rescues that bicycle yet?
They started a few weeks ago. I mean, they go all winter.
Right.
They're definitely starting to pick up. Fires are starting to pick up already. One in Cashmere this morning. Out 28. And there was one this morning. They did a level 1 evac of Mary Canyon, I think. Stuff up there.
Randy, have you guys had any river rescues so far this spring?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah, has there been any update on the Front Street Park handle?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I almost talked about it for a second, so we just forgot. They're trying to avoid trial. The
Who's the
court,
court,
the
okay.
prosecuting attorney, they really try and avoid trial on
Right.
everything, come to a resolution. The attorney, prosecuting attorney wants him to at least plead to the malicious mischief first, which is a felony, and the reckless driving. I don't think he's gonna go for less than that. So if they want to agree to that, then they'll probably end up at a trial. We've got a revised damage estimate, now that the work's been able to be done. So that is still pending. Like I said, they'll probably keep negotiating till they can. Till they either come up with a resolution, not with the prosecuting attorneys. Sticking with, he'd like to have him plead guilty to at least those. Whether or not he'll serve some more time than he already has prior to abandoning out or not, I don't know, but he'll at least, yeah.
Do you
At
think
least wants to felon charge on.
Do you think there'll be any retribution?
The restitution?
Yeah, or restitution, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They'll sort of some, whether or not it'll be, full
Right.
on the damage that we turned in or not, I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry, Sharon, go.
I just have one question. It's the criminal traffic arrest and it says operating a vehicle without ignition interlock. What is that?
Excuse me, on a DUI arrest or drugs, ignition airlock is something that's installed that the person has to pay for.
Oh, okay.
And they, it's installed by a company that monitors it. I think they've updated them where it actually can video them too. They'll have to blow into it to start the vehicle. Then randomly throughout their drive, they have to blow into that. So if there's alcohol detected on their breath, it will cause the vehicle to not run.
Okay, so he wasn't driving it without the
He was
ignition.
driving a car without one, right?
Yeah, he was supposed to get one, but he didn't. Or she.
Or he borrowed somebody's
Yeah.
vehicle that didn't
Okay.
have it.
Okay,
So it's another criminal offense.
Oh.
They're ordered to have it, and they drive them without
thanks.
Sorry, going back to the Front Street Donut Bandit. Sorry.
it. I like that.
You mentioned that they were continuing to go back and forth. I realize you're not the attorney's office, you're enforcement, but in your experience, how long does that back and forth come before basically it's okay, take it or leave it time? Like, how much longer can we expect this to go?
So we can't afford to pay his attorney any longer.
Fair answer. Fair answer. Okay.
I honestly, I don't. 25 years, I've been to trial less than a dozen times.
Okay.
But of course, the last several years, I don't make a lot of arrests. Like I did in the beginning.
Okay.
You don't go to trial very often.
Thank you.
They generally pay most stuff out.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is it a question for me?
Can I ask a question, Carl?
Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor. You said that the property was recovered. Were the people held in charge or were they just property recovered and they were let go?
Oh, no, they get charged. They were actually. I believe they were both. It can depend, but we sometimes can't both them if the jail's off restrictions. But from what I saw in the past down, they were actually, but we book them if we can. It doesn't always happen. Most of the time, recently, we've been able to book people.
Thank you, Randy.
Bet, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mike. Seen you somewhere before.
Back. Okay, so for us, our fuels reduction team has come on board for the summer. This is a few weeks old, so they've been working on the community chipping before they start their fuels reduction work on the CWDG grant. Again, reminding everyone that CWDG defensible space work is available for anybody in Fire District 3, including the city. So if you are interested in fuel reduction on your property, please reach out to us. Again, running the community chipping program is getting ready to wrap up, but if you have piles that you're not going to be able to burn here, we will come back in the fall and do chipping again. So you can always call us and get on the list for the next time we're out chipping. If you get enough people, the demand is high enough, we'll take random days throughout the summer and just try to go out and knock out as much as you can. I put in here that open burning is most likely going to end June 1st. We normally go through the North Central Washington Chiefs Association to confirm that. But we actually decided today, Chief O'Brien and myself, with the approval of the commissioners, all outdoor debris burning will be banned as of tomorrow. It's not a normal May 27th. We have, the fuel moistures are not great. I was really hoping we'd get more precipitation before now, but we haven't. It's been warm, we've had a lot of wind. And things are dry, so we're already having issues and we wanted to pull the plug before there's something that happens that requires a lot of resources again, which we now don't have.
Is this second grade?
As far as training, all of our wildland training, our refresher training is complete. All of our firefighters are ready. We had about 6 or 8 firefighters attend the State Firefighters Association Conference in Wenatchee. They went through a variety of different classes, live burns. They did some vehicle extrication, man and machine, all different kinds of things. We send our senior people out to go to this training. They can bring it back, kind of teach us a lot of the things they learned. We also have 3 of our members are slated to attend swiftwater rescue technician training in June. That makes them into a rescue swimmer. When they're done with that course, they can actively get in the water, swim out, grab somebody if necessary. That's usually a last ditch. But they're fully qualified at the technician level to do anything they need to do with river rescue. We've had several of our swiftwater techs. We've lost them as members in the last few years. All of them actually went to work for career departments, West Side. And so these 3 will step that back up. We like to maintain 6 or 7, just so there's 1 or 2 on all the time. So that'll bring that back up. So far, we have responded. This is 2 weeks ago now. We were at 234 calls. That was up from 217. We've been getting hammered. We're at like 270 now. It is for us. But it is, we ran 800 last year, which was the highest we've had, and we're ahead of that this year. And it's looking like it's gonna increase quite a bit. Again, I put a note that the fuel moisture continues to drop ahead of kind of our normal curve that we're looking at. That winds in low RH, we had some really low humidities in early May that are not typical. You're normally not listening to the fire weather in May and hearing 8% humidity.
Yeah, kidding.
So that was a little bit of a surprise. And it's ebbed and flowed, gone up and down, but there were some days with extremely low humidity. So obviously that's what precipitated us going ahead and moving up the burn ban a little bit. As I'm sure a lot of you know, we did respond yesterday, right? Yeah, to the fire at Mary Canyon. We obviously arrived there first. We were the ones that got the call. We pretty much provided all the resources we could. District 6 and District 9 came down. We were able to get on it along with the Forest Service and DNR, who arrived a little bit later as well. They did a good job last night of kind of putting in lines on the planks and kind of steering it up away from coming back down the canyon towards the houses. But it sounds like after talking to the IC earlier today, it's burning down in a drainage on the backside. They've been using air resources to try to hit it because they're not comfortable. Any hot shots are there and they weren't comfortable going down in that drainage to fight fire. And they're not going, I wouldn't go either. So right now, that's their plan. They're working on potentially catching it at the next control line. Again, they have some really highly qualified people up there, and they've been their resource order. They've ordered a Type 3 IC will take over the incident either tonight or tomorrow. They again ordered, like you saw today, 2 Type 3 rotors and 1 Type 1 rotor. And they also called in 2 large air tankers today to do retardant drops. The fire went from 15 acres the first night. They updated to 25, 55 this morning. I don't know if it's correct, but DNR just said it's 153 acres. So if that turns out to be correct, that's pretty good growth. It's burning in heavy timber. So
Where is that?
that second creek is off of Mary Canyon. This is outside of the fire district. It was burning. It appears to have started on an unoccupied, somebody owns it, but there's no structures or anything on it. And the fire has gone up. It's not threatening any structures, and it's kind of burning north into the abyss that's above there. So they're not really concerned about threats to structures or to plane or anything like that right now. Which is why they did a level 1 just for Second Creek Road, because again, there's not a strong feeling that there's a threat to any structures right now. But it is going on, and you're gonna see smoke for the next few weeks. Yes,
Mike,
sir.
how did that fire start again? Was it a controlled burn that got out of?
The DNR is investigating.
Oh, okay.
It's currently undetermined. Yeah. So probably a burn pot, but I will let the DNR
Okay.
finish their investigation.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, we've got, moving on now to resolutions, ordinances, orders, and other business. Item 11 is a resolution for an interfund loan. Chantel, are you kicking that off?
Well, I can definitely talk about the interfund loan that we
But we do have a
some
guest, right?
that I think would like to speak
Okay.
before we go down that road.
All right.
Yeah.
So you want to come up and let us know what happened?
Well, I'm West Cornelius, by the way, in Schley County sector. I was just voting low the waters down there, because I said as a kid, I had to harass her all summer, all school year long there at the school, and then she thought she'd get a break from me, and then I started showing up at the city pool all summer, and I said, now you still can't get away from me.
Look at that.
But, yeah, this has been top of mind since we heard of this, and I have been keeping track of all of it, and I've got it, but I would like to have Stacey Woolley, who's our levy clerk, come up and give you an overview about what happened and what can be done to fix it.
All right, great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Stacy Woolley. I did bring some paperwork kind of so that everybody would have a bit of a visual on it, but I kind of wanted to flip through with you guys. I don't think it's not enough, to tell you the truth, so I don't know who else.
These people matter.
Yeah.
Those people are the worst.
Start at that end and
And then if you don't, yeah. Here.
I'll get a copy from the mayor.
Yeah, I do, who all would like a copy?
Charlie over there.
For sure, I think probably you.
As long as you got enough for the full council mayor.
Yes. I think I might only be missing 2. I think I have a ton of them here, and I'll just kind of flip through these. It'll just take a couple of minutes to do it. Some things that I kind of printed off and so give you a little bit of an insight on that. Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Hi.
Thanks.
I did make Travis.
Oh, we got
One
one left.
Yeah, you.
One left over. Did I miss anybody?
I'll take them
Yeah,
for the record.
clerk for the record.
Thank you. So, when the district first reached out, my first initial thought was, oh boy, we've got a levy error. And I did respond to that, stating if there is a levy error, then of course the county is gonna do everything in our power to make that right. I think originally I was just in an email with one person and then there was some others involved and kind of went from there. And I did, mention that there would be a levy correction done, which we stand with that, there will be a levy correction done. So what I wanted to kind of show everybody though, is there's a bit of a gray area here because as I started pulling paperwork after the initial emails, I kind of saw there's not really so much of a levy error here. And so I kind of wanted to explain that and show you guys. The first thing that I have attached here is a copy of the ballot measure. And the only reason I wanted to attach that is because I'm not sure if everybody sees the ballot measures or if they understand how they read. Bear with me 1 second. I came up here and I didn't even put my readers on. Oh. I'll read it wrong. So with the ballot measures aren't always completely clear. Now, I'm not saying there's anything necessarily wrong with the ballot measure, but if you look at it, the way that it reads it does show, and I highlighted some things off that, it's to impose a regular property tax levy of 15 cents or less. That or less is always on there, in this case. So it's a little bit misleading, sometimes not really clear to the taxpayers, I guess, when it goes out. And it can be a little bit of a kind of an issue like for us, even though we're more familiar with them now. I started the levy process back in 2013. So normally I will question these things. In this case, I kind of didn't, and I'll show you why here. The second page, when you flip past that ballot measure, looks like this, and it's actually a copy of the preliminary letters that I send out every year to all of the taxing districts. And if you see in red in the middle there, I did highlight off where it says your ballot measure will replace your resolution for the first year. So then if you flip kind of to the next page, this is what the taxing district did provide us with. So the level certification, which looks great. The total certified levy request for the $450,000 the district is estimating high, which we always ask that they do. The administrative refund amount was at $905.82. That's all great, looks great. After that, next page is the district did submit the resolution as we asked per that preliminary letter. I kind of just highlighted off the same things here, that it does indeed again show the 15 cents or less per thousand of assessed value. The district did exactly what we asked as far as the final approval rate at the 72%. So we always ask that they do give us confirmation that it did pass. But then, if you look at the next page, the district also included a resolution. So that resolution, again, there's not supposed to be a submission of a resolution. It's actually that ballot measure, which again, like in the preliminary letter, it does state that you submit that ballot measure, that it replaces this resolution. The resolution was signed after the ballot measure. So the ballot measure went out first, that was signed, and then this resolution, now do I have the signature page here? Yeah. That was the 14th of November. So that was submitted on top of that resolution. So I'm hoping that you can kind of see where we've got a little bit of a gray area here. Now we've got kind of some conflict. Is it the resolution? Is it the ballot measure? What is the district actually trying to do? This is where I kind of kick myself a little bit because the Upper Valley Park and Rec and the city of Leavenworth are probably one of the best, if not the best, when it comes to communication. And we love the communication that we have with our taxing districts. I work with Chantel and have for many years now, and she's great about, reaching out and asking questions and all of that. So when I was going through and processing everything, we have, basically the way that it works is all of the certifications and the resolutions are due into the county by November 30th. So we have kind of the month of December, another extra week to 2 weeks to process and do all the calculations of the numbers for all taxing districts, which is, there's 39 of them. So we're kind of, we're going through the scramble there, and that's why I say this is where I feel bad that I didn't reach out and say, hey, we've got a resolution here on top of your levy certification. Which is it that the district is actually trying to levy for? What's the amount that they're actually wanting? I did do a screenshot on the next page in blue. I've got a bunch of writing on it. So that you can see that this is basically, once everything is said and done, and we do all the levy calculations, this is a screenshot out of the system that's kind of the final, kind of shows the final dollar amounts, the final values, all of that. And as you can see, what the district got was what was on the resolution. Not what was on the, on the resolution, not what was on the ballot measure. You can see kind of down at the bottom, in the middle, it does show the last year's levy. It just does show the 1% increase. It does show the amount to be refunded. And then down at the bottom, it shows what the district actually got plus the levy rate down there. So when we enter all of the information, there's basically 4 levy limits. And that one being up at the top, the statutory max. Then off to the right, there's a budget amount. Down in the middle, there is highest level levy amount. And then down here is a combined levy amount, which is what includes your 1%. The lowest of the 4 limits is what the district actually gets. So if we would have done it for the 15 cents, there would be an override here in the middle, and it would, that 15 cents would kick in and basically kind of eliminate some of these other numbers here. And then it would carry down to that calculated levy down at the bottom right. But again, as you can see, what the district got is what was actually on the resolution that was submitted. So I always ask all the districts, kind of, especially in a case like this where we're seeing, something that happened that wasn't the intention of the district, kind of pay attention to those things. Because we're going off of that resolution, especially again, since it was actually something that was signed by the board members at the bottom after that ballot measure was out there. And that's not uncommon. There are a lot of times where districts can collect a larger amount, but they choose not to. Maybe they have enough in their bank, maybe they don't need it this one year and they're gonna try to levy a little bit more the next year. And when you don't, like in this case, your 15 cents, we would go back and we would go ahead and show that as an overall levy amount. And anything that was left over would go into what we call bank capacity. So the problem with the Upper Valley Park and Rec though is if it was to be bank capacity, because it exceeds the statutory max, in this case being your 15 cents, because that's what was on the ballot measure, you wouldn't have the ability to collect it because it would put you upwards of about 20 to 21 cents. And you can't, I'm not gonna say you can't exceed the stat max because there is a new RCW out and it is on this next page. That I believe this RCW was as of 2024. So it does state that we can exceed that stat max, but If the correction is gonna be larger than the stat max, then by statute, it has to be broken down into 3 equal payments over a 3-year period. So we can't just give the entire amount the next year because it's gonna put you at that 20 cents. So again, therefore, they tell us by statute that it has to be broken down into 3 easy payments, or I won't say easy payments, but equal payments, I should say. Let's see, I have a couple of other things here on mine. Yeah, so if it was to be, if we were able to give it to you like in one payment, it would bring your levy rate up to 22 cents. So that's why we can't do it in one payment. If we break it down, it's gonna be about $70,627.38-ish per year over a 3-year period. Now, I did attach some hand calculations, and these are calculations Dina and I still work together on throughout the levy process. And she actually took, they look like this, and it shows you each year. And this is based on a 4% annual increase in value and a slider increase in new construction and state assessed utility. Would you say that's about right? Maybe about 4%? So based on that, these of course are just estimates, but you can see through the worksheets, the current year through the 25-26 levy is going to give you a total of about 479,800. It does show you your rate below it at the 17 cents. Then there's one for the next 26-27 year. Again, just to kind of give you an idea, putting the district again at about 17 cents, which we can exceed because of the levy correction. And that's about, looks like about $495 that they would collect in year 2. And then the final year being, looks like about 490,000 on that as well at about 16 cents. Then after that, the rate should drop pretty significantly. I mean, down to about 13 cents is kind of what we're estimating on that. And then you're going to be back in the realm of.
Sorry, I have a question. I'm not really following you. So when you're talking about exceeding the max, the 22 cents or whatever.
Right.
What's that for? Is that for the correction of what wasn't collected or?
Yeah, so again, if you go back to your ballot measure, what the district put out was 15 cents or less.
Right.
So with that 15 cents being the cap, the district can't exceed that. It kind of resets their statutory max amount. A park and rec can actually collect up to 60 cents, but they would have to do like a lid lift to do that. The way that your ballot measure reads, it's at the 15 cents. So you can't, it's kind of a new stat max. In this case, you can't exceed that because of what was put out to the voters. However, again, because of this new RCW, if the correction exceeds the stat max, then we can do it in 3 equal payments, even though it's over the 15 cents, because you didn't get it all the first year at the 15 cents.
So we're just talking about the correction, right?
Right. Yeah.
Versus doing an interfund loan.
Correct. Yeah, we're not talking about interfund.
This is right.
It's a different.
I'll talk about that.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted to understand is what, yeah.
How we're gonna get there eventually.
This is how they're paying us back so that we can so the PRSA can refund the general fund, the loan that we're gonna talk about.
Right.
It's a difference of what the district was shorted at the 15 cents is $211,882.13. That's the difference on it.
I'm still confused at how we messed up when there's resolution 5-2024.
Right.
And there's a resolution 3-2024.
Right. Let me back up to that.
Well, the 3-2024 is a normal form that they send out every year, and we approve that one.
But weren't you
because,
saying that we didn't need to do, like, that's what you guys are going off
that's
of?
what she's saying, yeah.
You shouldn't have submitted this form because again, when you have a new levy. In a park and rec, in the instance of a park and rec, they expire every 6 years.
Right,
So it's not like a renewal or anything like that. It's actually, there is no existing levy. It's a brand new levy. So you do have to put that out every 6 years. In this case, with you building the pool now, I don't know what the specifics are. So I mean, I'm just saying kind of if it was this or that, we don't know. Did you mean to levy less because you did submit this resolution? Did you mean to levy less because maybe you didn't need the money for the pool this first year, but yet you had to run the new levy because it had expired? And maybe next year you were building the pool and you needed more money? We don't know those things. Yeah, we don't know.
How come you didn't ask if you saw that there was maybe in a discrepancy between the two? How come you didn't reach out at the time?
Because I actually, I didn't catch it at that time. I had some communication with the district back in early October about this, about the new ballot measure that was going out. But I don't believe that we had any real like communication as to what specific documents to include back in November. Now, I do have an email that we did talk about it back in October, and I did state that you would send that resolution that would replace this ordinance resolution. That you would submit the ballot measure, I'm sorry, and that it would replace the ordinance resolution. That's where I said I do feel bad about that because the communication between the district and the county is so good that the fact that it didn't jump out at me and stand out in my mind, I do feel bad about that. Had the resolution not been submitted, then it wouldn't even have been a question because then I look at it and say, where's my resolution? All I have is that ballot measure. And then it's like, oh, okay, now they've passed a new ballot measure. Is that what they're wanting to do? And then that triggers me right away, of course, to reach out and say, hey, are you looking for the whole 15 cents?
but there was email to the district or Chantel that said that the ballot would replace the resolution, but it ends up being that the resolution replaced the ballot measure.
That's what ended up happening.
Okay.
Yes, that is what ended up happening.
So it sounds like it wasn't really a city miscommunication.
It's like I said, it's a very gray area and it was kind of communication.
It doesn't seem that great to me.
Communication overall.
I don't know about other council members, but this doesn't seem that great to me.
No,
Well, again, when you submit a resolution, especially when it's signed after that ballot measure went out, this often tells us that this is what the district wants to collect, not what's actually on that resolution.
but we didn't know that if we signed that resolution after the ballot measure, we assumed that the ballot measure would replace the resolution.
Well, just to clarify, both resolutions were passed by the board on the same day.
Same day, yeah.
So that's why I say it was, there's a bit of a gray area as to how that was submitted. Because again, that's not unusual. We do have districts who do under levy. They can, and they take that bank capacity and then they'll take it the next year. But again, that bank capacity is only good for 1 year. So in this case, it wouldn't have worked because the district wouldn't be able to collect the full amount. So we did have several discussions with the Department of Revenue and we were told that we are able to treat it as a levy correction. So that is the plan at this time, to treat that as a levy correction. Which means you would get the 70,000, and I don't have it in front of me again, each year for 3 consecutive years.
So in the meantime, for the rest of 2025, is the county going to help make us whole until those payments come in?
So if I'm understanding correctly, so in 2025, you would get the first or the 2025 or 2026 year, you would get the first of those 3 disbursements, which would be 70.
627.38.
Yeah.
I'm following, but it's gonna come in over the course of 3 years rather than in the time that it's supposed to come in. So is the county gonna help make us whole during that period of repayment?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, and this is the other thing here, so there is an opportunity, but I just don't know how they're gonna do it. But if I was sitting in the city's shoes, then I'd be reaching out to our board of county commissioners and saying, hey, can you make us whole on this? And then get paid back through the county instead of the city. I don't know how well that's gonna be because you haven't seen, I mean, we're charting a $4 million deficit up there, but you never know. I would be reaching out to the commissioners and asking them if they could do it. It's not like it hasn't been done before. Right. So.
Yeah, and we did have a similar case, kind of, with like what you're saying, that you're kind of not understanding how where that gray area is. We had a fire district that did a lid lift for 85 cents, but when they submitted their certification, they didn't ask for it. And it's similar in this case because you did submit that resolution. That tells us that's what you're asking for. You asked for that 1% increase over last year's levy. In the case with the fire district, they didn't even submit actually their ballot measure. They didn't submit that with their certification. It was simply a resolution and their levy certification. But we did make them whole the following year regardless, yeah.
So if two resolutions are submitted on the same date by the same people, is there a process to verify which one has priority? It seems to me that they're both resolutions.
That a ballot measure would.
Yeah, ballot measure would.
Proceed.
I understand that there is a process of collecting a lower amount if you want, I understand that.
Exactly.
But unless it's clear, how's that clearly stated?
Well, because the way that the levy process works, when you submit, normally what we ask for or what we are required to have by every district is a levy certification and a resolution. So the resolution is kind of the number one document, that resolution. Because again, like you're asking about, the ballot measure, but your ballot measure again says you're asking for 15 cents or less. You got the or less because your resolution asked for less. You asked for the 1% over the previous year's levy.
But part of the crux here, Stacy, is that no phone call was made to clarify, right?
That is true. Now, that being said, we as a county, always try to reach out to our taxing districts. Anytime we see, myself personally, that there's ever any kind of a gray area or something's not clear, then I reach out to the taxing districts. Are we required to? No.
But professionally speaking.
Exactly, we do that. And that's why I said this is where I feel bad about this, because the communication has always been so good between our two districts that I didn't catch that at the time, and so I didn't reach out at that time. Yeah.
And I've never actually had this happen this way. In the past, we do this every 6 years.
Yeah.
And you always sign the resolution and have it be
I have.
like this.
I have. This time around was the first time that she let me know, and this was where we communicated afterwards. And she said, you need this additional resolution, number 5, that's in here, that said that you guys are certifying that it passed. And I was like, oh, okay. And, I did read your red language here. And in my mind, I thought your ballot measure will replace your resolution for the first year. And I was like, great.
Yeah.
So I was nervous doing the normal form, not realizing that it was one or the other. So that's a little bit of clarification for future.
Yeah.
And to just make that pretty clear,
we would have
that you
changed
not
it.
submit this one.
We would have changed resolution 3-2024 that we could have got.
We wouldn't have done 3-2024 at all.
Yeah.
We would have just had the 5.
So either way, we can't get the money this year.
Not all.
So our
Well, we
options
can,
are.
we just have to ask commissioners for it.
Well, the options are, we can get it to the
Likely.
taxpayers, right, this year.
Hmm?
Uh,
Right.
So the options are to ask the commissioners for it. Or we have an what's it called? Inter-fund loan that we can do interest-free, correct? And we have the funds available for that too, right? And we learned the hard way to not do this next time.
Oh, really?
I think we've learned. That,
And I do want to note this page, the levy certification page. In my experience in the last every 6 years that I've done this, the assessor's office told me this is the most important page. Because the dollar limit that gets on there is where the buck stops. So if I were to put 200,000 there, they would not collect more than 200,000. So I felt comfortable with this process because I knew that I was putting 450,000, knowing that it was not gonna come in that.
Right, yeah, because we talked
And I
about
was
that.
like,
in-
okay, we should be totally
Yeah,
safe
we
here.
talked
We've
about
got
that in the
plenty of
PRC.
cushion, so.
If I could just add to that a little bit too, so if a district submits only the levy certification and you do not submit a resolution, then we can only levy for you what you levied the prior year.
Right.
Plus your, you do still get like an administrative refund on top of that, but we can only levy what was levied the prior year without a resolution.
Even though you have to levy the ballot, that's just a clerical word.
Yeah, this is kind of a little bit of a different case because of the ballot measure there. If you had turned in, if you had submitted the ballot measure without that, even without that resolution, if you wouldn't be held to the previous year because you did submit that ballot measure.
Right.
So yeah, so you would have been okay to go ahead and levy moving forward. It's just if you don't have that, if you're not passed, if you haven't passed a new levy, in this case, you have to do levy.
We did.
Right. Then you don't need that resolution. You don't need the resolution. You only need that ballot measure. So had you submitted the ballot measure, then yes, we would have levied accordingly. If you hadn't submitted the ballot measure or the resolution and only submitted the levy certification page, that page only that Chantal was talking about, then we would only be able to levy for whatever your previous year was at that time. Again, plus your extras, plus your administrative refund. It's a complicated process, and a lot of people aren't familiar, obviously, with the levy process and think it's really kind of simple. You know, we're gonna send in a couple of different pages and, you know, it's gonna be good to go, and it doesn't always work that way. There's a lot of RCWs and statutes that we have to abide by. And it's just.
So my question
unfortunate in this
is,
case.
when people get grief because it went up above 15 cents, does that all come to you instead of to the city? You get to answer their questions about why they're getting 22 cents or whatever, 17 to 18.
They're probably gonna reach out to both of us, and believe me, we get kind of the majority of calls for all of the taxpayers. And in this case, it is an easy explanation to them that yes, you are above that 15 cents because of a levy correction. So we can always explain that to them. Absolutely.
is the process clear, kind of how the paperwork to get the levy correction coming in the next 3 years?
Yeah, so when the preliminary information goes out next year, it's gonna look a little bit different for this district. I'll make sure that I'm in good contact with the district. That preliminary letter is gonna look a little bit different because there's gonna be a different percentage of increase on that. Yeah.
I'll have her on speed dial next year.
Yeah. You can attend our meetings.
Would you like me to talk a little bit about the inter-fund loan?
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Any other
Yes.
questions from anybody? No? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I do appreciate Stacy's relationship with me. She is always there when I ask questions.
Yeah. You've been one of
Been a
the
good
good
relationship.
relationships.
This was unfortunate,
Yeah.
but we'll get through it. As far as what's in front of you tonight, and I'm all about let's call the commissioners and see if they are willing to pony up and give us the money up front. I don't have any problem asking those questions, but in the meantime, we're fixing a pool next door and we have to keep the money flowing right now. So I do want to make sure that we open on time, and this resolution gives me that flexibility. I did write in here that it's not that I'm just going to transfer $200,000 immediately over to the pool fund. Some key points. We have about $100,000 in cash reserve that I work with. So I don't believe that I would need all of it, even if we were to spend it on the capital projects right away. For 2025, right now, the PRSA board has noticed the priority, and the priority is capital improvements first. So none of the fun stuff that we want to do in the future, which includes something like a slide.
My phone?
Yeah, that's you.
It's on.
Sorry,
It's a great song, though.
Good call.
it is a good
It
song.
was an alarm.
Scared me.
It was bedtime.
I like some evening sun.
It was a great segue to the next project, shades and umbrellas.
Yeah.
Refurbishing the mushroom, and
I thought this
making
was
sure the
fun.
frog stays in good shape. And potentially future seating capacity expansions. There could be other things that come up once the board has more time, and we are working with UVAB, Upper Valley Boosters Aquatics.
Aquatic booster.
Aquatic boosters, who is probably going to be looking at doing some additional surveys for us, just to feel out the pool users. Like this year, I'm sure that they'll be talking a lot. They might even do some sort of formal surveys, just to get a feel from the users, what's most important to you. So that was a goal for 2026. So I think for this year, we'll probably be able to get by pretty good. With the payback starting in next year, we should be fine within 2-year period. I've put this one as a 3-year just to be safe. Again, if we can get the county though to come back and provide the funding, then I won't utilize this unless I have to for the short term until we figure out that particular solution. But I will need money to operate the pool, get it operational in the next 2 to 3 months since it's starting off.
So what are the risks of utilizing our own funds to do the loan? Is this gonna put us short if something else comes up?
No, this is a loan from the general fund, and the general fund holds about a $1.4 million reserve. So no, I don't foresee, the fact is I don't think I'm gonna borrow even close to $100K.
It seems to me the only reason to go to the county and asking for the funds is some sort of sense of
Accountability.
fairness, but really it's more tedious, with less control over the outcome, and we'll be waiting. In the meantime, we need to borrow some money anyways, if it takes some time to get the money from them. I don't know, I appreciate accountability. I'm a very big fan of it, but I also think expeditiousness and just making, everybody is acknowledging what happened and taking some sense of the responsibility for it.
I actually don't agree with that. I don't think that they were taking responsibility at all. I really don't. I think that they were concocting a gray area so that they wouldn't have to take responsibility and just saying, hey, you know, this is what the statute says and we'll make you whole over the next 3 years. But there wasn't a whole lot of accountability that I heard in her explanation at all.
And by gouging the taxpayers, yeah, I mean, 20%.
Well, and now people are going to be taxed a whole lot more than they agreed to because they made an error and they didn't take responsibility for it. And that's problematic for me, and I think the county does need to make us whole.
I think they should be out front with the communication on this.
I think they should too. I think that they should say, we are very sorry, but we made the error and we're gonna fix this, and it shouldn't hurt our taxpayers and it shouldn't hurt our funds in order to make that correction.
Well, all of the options that have been put out there, there's no way around it. The money, if we want to get the money out of the levy, we have to charge more taxes in the next 3 years.
3 years.
That's the only way to get
Right.
the money. It's too late to get it up front now. So that is something we can't negotiate. We can't.
Right, it's just, is it gonna come back to us to pay back or back to the county that they can pay?
There's a
So-
couple of different ways that this could play out.
Yeah. How else do we
Yeah.
see getting the tax money?
Right,
Well, if we pass this, it doesn't mean like, we don't have to use this if we don't need it. If somehow the commissioners come across with it, then it doesn't
no, but
apply,
to
right?
Mike's point is the only way we're going to get this lost money from the taxpayers is by spreading it out over 3 years and increasing the amount that they're, I mean, that's the only way
Right,
that we're gonna
Because nobody
get.
paid the tax this year.
right, right.
At
And
least
it's
not-
just a matter
it's not
of,
that gap.
are we paying the county with those extra dollars, the money that they are going to give us? Or are we paying ourselves back to the general fund for that? That's the only variable. And again, yeah, you could do it to kind of quote, hold them accountable, but, I mean, yeah, it's a matter of how some of this is the relationship that you want to establish with them, and quite frankly, like he says, they're in a hole themselves. They're borrowing
It's not
already
our
from
fault,
their.
though.
No, it's not our fault,
No.
but I'm saying if,
They chose to
How-
be in a deficit.
I'm just saying, we don't, we've got an opportunity to just say, okay, we'll take it over 3 years, or again, just go to them and say, and quite frankly, the relationship is probably such that they'll just say, no, we don't have to do it.
Mhm.
I don't think it hurts to ask.
No, I don't either.
I think
Yeah.
it's worth having the
Well-
conversation.
I think it means something that if the taxpayers knew, I don't know how much they're gonna
Right,
understand this
right.
thing. If they did know, if that we made the attempt to, you know, go with the county, request the money, and they were the ones that turned us down, even though their mechanization is the one that failed us in this case, their county assessor, at least went there and made the offer.
Well, that goes back to my point is when they get their higher tax bill, because that's what's gonna happen.
Right.
When they get their highest tax bill, what's the communication going out? And the communication going out should be, yeah, the county blew it.
That's my regret, because I feel bad saying this now that they left the room, because I should have said that while they're in the room. But I think my concern is when people do call, I want that narrative to be, we screwed up, and not, well, it's complicated.
Well, it's a gray area.
Yeah.
It's a gray area. No, it's not,
It's not a gray
actually.
area.
And I mean, to your point, for them to have some sort of monetary restitution, they're not even willing to take responsibility for it. So good luck.
Yeah,
I'm more concerned that the messaging is consistent.
Right.
right.
Playing devil's advocate, I hate paperwork, and so, based on that, I've made a lot of mistakes with paperwork, and so I don't know whose responsibility is it to know that after you pass a levy, that you don't submit the second resolution. I mean, these are all structurally, these are requirements that the county has, state laws, whatever dictates that. So just the county responsible for making sure that we know that? Or are we supposed to do our homework and get legal advice or something from somebody to say, don't submit that second resolution when you just passed the levy? As she said, I don't know if it's true or not, but she says they're not required to tell us that. The onus is on us. And so then now we're saying, well, they should have, they always do. And that's true. And you say that you have a good relationship. But if they're not required to, then the onus is on us then to not submit the second resolution. So we screwed up. But typically we have a fallback because she would have called and clarified, but she didn't this time. So I'm just kind of like, well, I don't know how I listened, I followed it very clearly. I can't draw
Well,
a
she
clear
did.
line in the sand.
She told Chantel in October before
Right.
the election, exactly what she needed.
Right.
And she still processed what she didn't need. I mean, that's what she explained tonight, because she had, there's the email stating exactly what's needed to be processed. The resolution that was passed through the election. Not the other form.
And it says right on her letter, that's the one in red,
Yeah,
your ballot measure will replace your
Right.
resolution. It doesn't say don't submit your resolution.
yeah.
Okay.
It says your ballot measure will replace your
Yeah,
resolution.
there's not gray area.
Well, or less.
Well, a big part of how I like to approach life is so you have all the facts. What do we do now?
Right.
And do we want to ram this down their throats? Is it gonna make us feel good?
I don't think that's what I was suggesting.
No.
I'm more so suggesting accountability and a conversation about how whether or not the county would be willing to make us whole this year in under taxing. And we have this resolution for a interest-free loan in our back pocket. And like Chantel said, we don't need the money for the next 2 to 3 months. So I think it's worth having the conversation with the county. And if we don't get the response that we're looking for, we have a backup plan.
And just acknowledging that some other comments about what the messaging will be when that
Right.
tax rate goes up. So what would make us comfortable?
So the PRSA board had this conversation as well. That's where we want to come together and really make sure that we have one message. And I think the PRSA board is willing to take that on, to put that together. Obviously bring it to you guys as a final recommendation. This is a levy of the PRSA board though. This is not the city of Leavenworth's levy.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it should come from the PRSA board.
Mhm.
As you know, a lot of our community members don't even know what the PRSA is. It's right there on their taxes.
I don't want to be chairman
Is
anymore.
it gonna be a massive impact
See your
to
signature all over
people?
this, Shane.
Probably not. Because you are talking about 50 to maybe $75 for the PRSA per household on their property bill, and that may even be high. So we could just be talking about $20 more next year.
Yep.
What the taxpayers don't know is that they didn't get the increase this year like they were supposed to.
Right.
So they're in an obliviousness to all of it of, oh, well, my taxes went up. But they're not looking at the details and seeing that it was the fire department or the school district or the PRSA or the mosquito district or whoever's on that list.
Some of them will.
And that is gonna be the hard part that the board talks about of, okay, we really want to get this message out there that yes, this was a mistake that was made. We did not collect these taxes. Unfortunately, those additional taxes will be added over the next 3 years. It makes me wonder from a 15 cents perspective, because we were at 0.0693 when this happened. So over the last 6 years, we were down that low from, I think it was 11 cents
It
last.
was, yeah.
time. So at 15 in 3 years, where are we gonna be if this hadn't happened? 10 cents, 11 cents, somewhere in
Right.
that range. They're gonna still be at 15 cents 3 years from now.
Yeah. No one looks at their property taxes.
Well, let's go ahead and get this out there. We can, again, contact the county, but this would still give us the backup, and I think we need to do that so that if they say no, we don't have to
But we're not going to.
pay the bills and.
So do we need to pass this or do we table it until?
Well, you can pass this. That doesn't mean I'm gonna transfer money.
She's not gonna transfer the money until
Okay.
she needs it, so.
It just gives me the ability to do
Okay.
this if
That's
and
what
when
I'm
it's
saying.
needed.
Yeah.
And I'll keep you guys apprised of that. Anytime I do a transfer, I will let you know if I have to.
Probably first thing would be let us know how the discussion goes with the commissioners.
Right.
Absolutely.
Leavenworth City Council moves to approve and authorize the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement with Chelan County. Whoops, wrong one. Leavenworth City Council moves to approve Resolution 14-2025, interfund loan from the general fund to the pool fund.
Second.
Moved by Clint, seconded by Shane. Any other discussion? Yes. Ron?
Ron Duncan, D24 Cascade. It's a little awkward because I really agree with Mike. And Ron against it. what I heard in the conversation tonight was Chantel admitting that we learned some things. And so to say that this is all on the county is, I think I think by pursuing the county is doubling down on Leavenworth as a difficult community to deal with. Because we've had interactions with the county that weren't so great before, and they were probably more justified on that one. And to do it on this one seems like we're burning capital that we could probably use later. But the main thing for me is that this levy, the new levy, is like double of what the previous levy was. The levy they collected this year is more than they collected last year. Last year we had a pool. We have a pool this year that we got more money for. So to say that we have to have the funds available right now seems like petulance to me, that we're demanding something because we can have it, instead of looking at it and saying, this is an unfortunate situation. And perhaps we need to look at our priorities and with the money we have and make it work, because we're grownups and we can make things work, understanding that an unfortunate situation happened that we're being made whole for eventually. And so take even this loan, Chantel admitted the money's really not needed, which even makes the case further that we shouldn't be burning capital with the county. So I just think the resolution is unnecessary. I think it emphasizes the fact that the city of Leavenworth is stamping their feet because an unfortunate thing happened. And I think that we should be grown-ups and take the money that we have now. We maintain our relationship with the county that says that we've learned something and we're gonna all work together, and the county will double check our paperwork next time to help us and move on. I think that the resolution is unnecessary and sends a wrong message.
Okay, thank you. But this, yeah, this resolution,
Is to allow the interfund.
I understand.
That's not to go out.
it's not to
But
go.
it's unnecessary.
Well, it will be later in the season. Right today, it's not. I'm okay today, but in the next few months, I won't be.
So we do the same, we got more money this year than we got last year.
No, they only collected half. I was supposed to get 410,000. They've only collected just over 200,000.
How much did they collect last year?
200,000.
So they got more, they got 200,000 this year.
Yeah.
Like last year.
Like last year.
1% increase.
But we have a budget that includes over $200,000 in capital improvements that need to happen before we can even open the pool.
Required before we can open the pool.
Yes.
We are underway with fixing the pool, yes. Yes.
We got some major fun. So, we've got a motion by Clint, seconded by Shane. Any other discussion from council? All those in favor, let me see your hand. It passes unanimously. Interlocal agreement with Chelan County, Selby.
Thank you, Mayor. At your last meeting, we discussed this interlocal agreement with the county to fund a river recreation manager position. There were some questions from council and some current concerns of council that I could not address at that time. I have since had meetings with the Natural Resources Department staff who will be working on this, as well as Aaron, who will be overseeing the position. And we've also made some amendments to the IOA. They were put in red line in your packet. And we've got L. Yeah, L is coming online, and Aaron is here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
I can elaborate a little bit on what we talked about, what the concerns were from the folks, if that'll help.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We heard that we didn't go into detail on how we would actually show that we're matching funds for the position. So basically, when we submit invoices to the city for our, for our hours and work, we would be showing on that invoice a timesheet with the matching hours that we're funding with county funds. So, yeah, I didn't go into that level of detail last time I was here, but that's how we typically operate at the county. We do pretty much all of our work with grant funds, and most of those require match, so we have it pretty dialed to be able to show that. And then the same for the project level work, so we have the 25,000 is for staff time, and then 25,000 that could be available for specific projects. And similarly, we would be submitting a proposal for for a project that we would be interested in doing, including a budget that would show how those funds would be matched. So there will be documentation for any funding requests that come, and we'll bill per month per quarter is typically how we do those.
I just checked the packet. My red lines did not transfer from Word into PDF. That happened on 2 documents that I submitted to the packet.
I was just gonna.
For some reason, I
Yeah,
think I need to change my, my settings.
Oh,
For some reasons, just pain, convert to PDF. Anyway.
So which version is in our packet?
The version with the changes in your packet, and the changes were made to section K.
This doesn't show you what they were.
In subsection 2. And I also, for some reason, can't access the server, so I can't bring up my original Word document to tell you exactly what I changed. But it was 50% of the fully burdened hourly rate up to 25,000 and invoice no frequently than monthly. And I believe that the county's planning on invoicing us quarterly. And that the remaining 25,000 can be used for contractual infrastructure improvements agreed upon between the city and county. And that they'll be cured by the county, but approved by the city administrator.
Other questions?
Are we gonna hear from Aaron?
If you have a question,
I guess I just like a summation of like the list of duties that she sees she's gonna be responsible for.
That is in
The
the
job description.
that we submitted, and I also gave that in my presentation last time I was here. I don't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in your packet from last meeting and did not include it in the packet for this one.
Oh,
We have like facilitation of our river committee that we've been working with for years, help with signage, help with parking. There are some ideas for monitoring use and being able to identify the use levels and how they're changing, and that can help with grant proposals that we would also be preparing and submitting for things like riparian restoration at the put-ins and takeouts and places that are getting impacted by river recreation, river safety stuff. One of the things we had talked about in previous years was removal of hazardous material related to the oil dam infrastructure. And we actually have some funding remaining from the grant that we were working off of for that mill dam project. So that would be one of the sources that we would be able to use to match city funds for removal of hazardous material.
would it be possible, Aaron, someone during this summer to just kind of get a report sometimes, like what's the update or status thing of how it's going and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we talked about that last time too. An annual accomplishments report, I think, was something that the city council was interested in seeing, and it absolutely would.
Could happen. Okay.
Yeah.
The Leavenworth City Council moves to approve and authorizes the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement for the Upper Valley Park and Recreation Service Area between Chelan County and the city of Leavenworth.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Zeke. Other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, let me see your hand. All those opposed? It passes unanimously. The next item.
Thank you.
Rate and fee schedule. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
So I think you read item 14 and not item 12.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
interlocal agreement.
Yeah, I did. How do we officially undo that?
Friendly amendment to
That was
12.
local, yeah.
And Dave, you
No,
accept that?
yeah.
Will you
Second.
accept that friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay, let's vote on that again, just to make
Okay,
sure.
so I would like to amend my motion to the Leavenworth City Council moves to approve and authorizes the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement with Chelan County for a river recreation manager position through the end of 2025. Thank you.
Second. Yes, second. All those in favor, let me see your hands. And it's still passed unanimously. All right, now we're on to
Well, I wanted to
13.
ask a question.
Oh,
Till the end of 2025, so a person at this position till December 31st.
Yeah,
What are they gonna do in the winter months?
well, we'll consider, we're gonna see how it goes and
Oh,
we'll consider
okay.
doing another one
another one.
for the next
Okay.
year.
Okay.
So we have, if we have it in the budget, $50,000 each year, 25 and 26. When I reached out to the county in February or March about this, they said they don't have the funds to hire a new, they wanted to use existing staff for the first year. So that's what we agreed.
It's
So
only
we're-
half a year.
We're,
Yeah,
we're
Good catch,
getting that, person with $50,000.
25, we're subs, 20, up to $25,000 is what we will pay for a portion of L's time on this work.
And then who pays for the rest since we have,
They,
Would think.
They would
I
pay
mean-
for the rest of the time, and then
yeah.
we also have project money
Absolutely.
because we don't, they're not gonna use all of the 50 because we're not doing a full year. Right?
Yes.
No.
We're
well,
only
it says
doing
the city,
They
it says
can
the
still
city
use the
budgeted
50,000 for the
50,000
year.
of lodging taxes per year in the 25-26 biennial budget.
Right. But we're just doing it, right now, we're doing it through the end of the year. to
Through the
get
end
us-
of this
and see if we
Okay.
want to go on and get an assessment of it and how it's worked, so.
Okay.
Rate and fee schedule, Landria.
So I know that there's no red lines in here because we had red lines before, and I was under the impression that we were not supposed to have red lines in the final packet, so, but maybe that's.
Oh. Because you
incorrect.
just looked at Selby's.
No, I didn't. But, I can pull up the red lines from the previous meeting if you would like to see them. But nothing has changed. We're still looking at charging $15 for the notary fees for non-city items. There was a minor correction in the fest hall, package prices. And pallets.
Pallet pickup.
Oh, yeah.
Pickup. Thank you for that feedback, and it just now says pallets.
And then the acknowledging the sewer calculation for municipal
Yep.
pools, schools, churches, and nonprofits. So no changes since what you saw at the last packet. I do want to let you know, though, that community development does have intent of looking at their fee structure later. They're just a bit inundated with a lot of SUPs right now. So I know they haven't had time to really delve into this. I'm not certain if they'll bring that before the end of the year, but we always bring the rate and fee schedule at the end of the year. So if they don't get time before that, you will see all of their changes at the end.
Leavenworth City Council moves to approve resolution 15-2025 rate and fee schedule.
Second. Oh, gee, Zeke, you were louder, so I'm gonna go with Zeke again. Any other questions? All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously. Okay, now 14, Chantel.
Hey, we got a red line version. This is a pretty minor amendment, but this has definitely been something I gave you a very lengthy background so that you were up to speed on what the PRSA board has been talking about and where we're at with this. Bottom line, the Chumstick Community Council no longer exists, but the board definitely wanted to recognize this position to be someone that could live out the Chumstick. And in their discussions, as I outlined in the write-up, they realize that there will always be at least two members within corporate city limits because those are two council members. You also have a commissioner and a Cascade School District member though, that could also live in Leavenworth. So essentially you could have 4 out of 6 living within the corporate limits of the city if we did not exclude this particular one outside. So Shaston is your 5th one. That covers all 6. Commissioner, 2 City of Leavenworth council members, 1 Cascade School District board member, 1 Shaston Community Council, and then the last representative, as noted, will live outside the corporate boundaries of the City of Leavenworth. This document, even though it's approval of the PRSA board, it is actually agreed to by the City of Leavenworth, so therefore you guys have to approve this. And then once this one is moved forward, it will go to the school district and the Shaston Community Council to be ratified by both of them. However, we will start with the county because this agreement is essentially between the county and the City of Leavenworth.
I don't know, as the chairman of the PRSA board, I'm kind of shaken on our decisions.
Don't second guess yourself, Shane.
There's no way we can get in trouble for this. No blowback.
No.
Well, we did have the county and the city attorney look at this.
All right.
Where did the East Leavenworth group, the East Leavenworth, where does that line up in here?
It's anyone outside the city of Leavenworth, so
They
that
could
would
be
be,
this.
that includes,
So you could have 2. Is it just 1 person or could you have 2? A Chumstick, for example, and no area gets to overload another person.
Well, Leavenworth overloads.
yeah,
but-
Leavenworth overload.
The
But
City of Leavenworth.
it could, if both the school board person lived within the city. And if the county commissioner were to come from the city, it could have 4 of the 6.
Or the
But-
school board could live on East Leavenworth.
But the school board can be, again,
Anywhere within the school district.
anywhere in the school district, and this position would have to be outside of Leavenworth is what we're saying, so.
Okay, and part of most of the East Leavenworth Road is outside. the city limits.
Outside.
Just the first part is in Leavenworth. Okay.
The Leavenworth City Council moves to approve and authorizes the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement for the Upper Valley Park and Recreation Service Area between Chelan County and the City of Leavenworth.
Second.
Moved by Zeke, seconded by Shane. Any other questions? All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously. Selby, the collective bargaining agreement.
Thanks, Mayor. Council, back in December, you ratified changes to the union contracts. You had basically a sheet, we provided you with a sheet with bullet points that outlined the changes. I won't do that to you again. I will never ask you to ratify a document where you don't have red line changes. And I'm making that clear to the union as we negotiate the next version. So I was provided changes to the document because it is their document, I think in March. And now you have a red line version of the changes to the non-supervisories unit. Everything in there is what you agreed to in December. There's one minor change that was not included in the red lines that I was supposed to give you, but my redlining didn't work. And that was about, yep, I know that they got that. There's, when we calculate the step procedure, so it's somewhere in the end of the document, my computer's not pulling it up. But under the salary step procedure, we got a date wrong, in how we calculate the CPI. So there's a salary step procedure effective 1/1/26. An example is where the changes need to be made. It's the second half of 24 and the first half of 25, the average will equal the CPI. And the same for 2027. It's the second half of 25 and the first half of 26, the average of which we calculate the CPI. So there was an error where if it said 24, so the half of 25, and it should have said the second half of 24.
What page? So do you know what page, what page is that on? Do you
I
know?
don't know.
23.
Page 23.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the red line version.
Yeah, the red line version. So 23, but actually page 19 of the
Sure.
the actual document.
If you're looking at a non-red line version,
No, I'm looking at the one that Andrew sent out in an email, the red
it's on
line.
page 23.
Okay.
Okay, right here. Yeah.
Okay.
So for example, as we go to calculate the CPI, basically the COLAs, which is based on CPI, we'll look at the second half of 24 and the first half of 25, because we won't have the second half of 25 when we're talking about COLA adjustments. So we use the second half of 24 and the first half of 25. The average of those would be
What you get in 26.
correct within the parameter of the CBA, which is somewhere between 2 and 5%. That's the only change that that's the only additional change that was caught. And at your next meeting, I'll bring you the supervisories unit, which is basically the same thing, but with things removed that don't apply to supervisors.
At the top of page 25, I noticed there's one more change that needs to be made about it's just the last sentence associated with the longevity bonus. The example plays out the math,
Yeah,
but it doesn't correct where it says the monthly bonus is $90. It actually should be $150.
oh, I corrected it in the parentheses and I didn't correct it in the sentence.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'll make a note of that.
Okay, any
Good
other?
eyes, Amy.
Yeah, thank you for that.
The order of operations doesn't take precedence. Parentheses first.
Oh, the math is right. Just have to also
Why not?
change the language.
Which one takes? You're getting smart, I know. Okay, I would entertain a motion. Or not.
There's two motions.
Yeah, our attorney, when she found out that I asked you guys to ratify a bullet pointed list of things that were changing, she didn't like that very much. So these are the motions that she's asked me to ask the council to adopt.
Leavenworth City Council moves to authorize the mayor to sign the 2025-2027 CBA previously ratified in concept by the council.
Second. Moved by Shane, seconded by Mike. Any other questions? All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously.
Leavenworth City Council moves to ratify any actions by the city taken after January 1st, 2025 that are consistent with the 2025 to 2027 CBA.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Sharon. Right? I'm assuming there's no other questions. All those in favor, see your hand. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, council.
We are done with action items, council report. Sharon?
Okay, as part of my day, my computer wouldn't print. So what did my report wouldn't print? So I have to look off of this little piece of paper. May 14th, mosquito board met at 10 a.m. to discuss hiring. We need to hire one more person. Women's Exchange also on that date. We had a student speaker. Her name was Janice Chains from Taiwan. And we had another lady that came to the meeting that just wanted to see if she wanted to join the meeting. She was from Taiwan. So it was kind of nice to, two of them got to talk a little bit since the girl's she's been away from home for quite a while. May 15th, the last day for recycle bags in the street. Can't tell you how wonderful that is to just take the recycle bag down to the street and have it picked up rather than carted to the the other place. May 16th, we met at 10 a.m., the mosquito board to interview one person, and then we met again at 2 p.m. to interview a second person. On May 19th, the Chelan Douglas Health District had a meeting, and where did I write those little things? Maybe I didn't write them. Anyway, they had a big presentation on the opioid crisis, and darn it. Oh, here I did. And they have many overdoses that are never even, I think they figured 60% that they never even get reported. There is a training you can take for using the get myself in a mess here, trying to read all this. Maybe I just won't. There just was a lot of neat things they said, and there is a place that you can go to get, it's Friends for Life campaign, and it's on the internet, and that they have some great things to say there about what you need to know. On the 20th, also that meeting, I went to another mosquito board. On May 20th, Chelan County comp plan at the fire hall. That was really interesting. Did anybody here go? They had little like jars that you can put suggestions in, and a list of things that you might want to suggest and other things. I thought it was pretty interesting. There was a lot of people there. A lot of times they have these things and there's 8 people there. So it was nice to have a full house. On May 21st, I had a project citizen meeting with Helen Eschen and Mia. Where did I put her last name? Who knows? Oh, Mia Dreiss. And they had been talking, and somebody suggested that they should talk to me about firewalks. So I met them in the library, and we talked a lot about it, gave me some ideas, some places to look, some places to call. And they are going to, they're not going to have the meeting that we've had that you've been to, mayor's been to, I don't know if you've been to, where they have all their senior projects. And then you go and you have somebody that you judge. They're not doing that this year, but they are. I let the girls know I'd like to hear when they do theirs. They're just going to do a presentation. So I'll be going to that. And then we had the downtown steering committee this morning, which Selby will report on, and study session in council. Thank you.
Right. Downtown Steering Committee went there. Selby, I'm sure, will give a great report, since I'd like to leave it to the people that did the staff trip to Bavaria. But it was a great meeting. Study session in tonight.
The parking committee met earlier this month and went through all 8 of the proposals that were submitted for our first phase of the parking garage. And the committee rated them, and we will be setting up interviews with 4 of them. They're coming up in the near future. Some good proposals. I'm pretty excited about this.
Good.
That's all I got.
Great.
Nice work. I attended the Upper Valley Historical Society on the 20th. They determined that they're still in negotiation with the Grange on establishing a lease, a long-term lease with the Grange Hall. That's not a done deal. There's the so essentially they're going to re-meet with the state Grange folks and get some things clarified that the Grange wasn't understanding what their intentions were. So that's still yet to be decided. They are having a tea affair to bring in new members and just to promote the museum this month, the spring tea. And That's the end of my report.
Shane?
I haven't been to any meetings on it.
All right. How'd you manage that? No. Mike?
Let's see, on the 20th, I met with a couple fellows who reached out and had a lot of questions about our rate increase structure and and that blossomed into a long meeting with lots of questions and answers and a couple follow-ups with Selby and been in communication with them, but it was a nice way to connect with some of our constituents and had another constituent reach out to me on the 22nd about state of sidewalks around Mountain Meadows, and again, followed up with the city, got them talking, so that was nice. Had the downtown steering committee this morning, and here I am.
Great, wonderful, thanks. I don't have a lot, so I'm gonna just pass it on to.
As Ann said, the parking advisory committee and staff ranked all 8 statements of qualifications received for the parking garage feasibility study. The top 4 firms, the interviews have been scheduled for June 16th and 17th. They're taking place late in the day. ARC Architects, Fryhigh Architects, Johnson Architects, and WGA Design Collaborative were the top 4. ARC is currently doing the Front Street restroom project, so they are, of those, the only firm that I'm aware that the city has worked directly with. So look forward to those interviews, and
Is that open to the public, those interviews, or not?
not really posted as public meetings. Yeah. Oh, we had a professional development day on Thursday at Mountain Meadows, so all of our staff came down.
Oh.
We had Mountain
Mountain
Meadows.
Spring.
Mountain Spring Lodge.
Little different. He was looking for a spot for the mayor.
In 20 years, we'll be having those. On Meadows.
We'll all be there.
We went down to Mountain Spring Lodge. We had a really nice time. And we learned a lot. We had a great morning session with Karin, what was her last name? Peabody. Who is someone that Andrea knows. And Andrea did a great job organizing the whole day. So kudos to Andrea for that. On Wednesday, I was on a panel at the Brownsfield Conference in Yakima. It was a panel all about Brownsfields in rural communities. And I talked a lot about community development, community engagement. And it was really useful. And while I was there was someone in the audience who came up to me later and says, hey, I live in the city. And those postcards you get about your community engagement nights, I get those, but I just don't show up. But maybe I'll start showing up now. And it turns out he lives 1 street over from me. And then the next day I passed him on my mountain bike.
That's awesome.
We had a downtown steering committee meeting this morning. It was fairly brief. It was just an hour long. We spent a lot of the time talking about the city and chamber trip to Bavaria and what we learned there. And the next downtown steering committee meeting is going to be a 2-hour-long field trip of Front Street. So I've asked folks to send me spots they want us to go and have a look at. And that's how we will spend that meeting. And then the future meetings, we'll continue to have updates from staff about SOMAS and their progress with the pedestrian. So, and Shannon and I had a productive meeting with Sonny from Clever City. You guys remember him up on the Zoom screen, as well as staff from DOT to discuss putting those signs in the right of way. And they didn't say no. They do have some concerns from a safety standpoint about where they're located, how big they are. Are they intended to be read by people as they're driving down the highway and that sort of stuff? So they will guide us as we figure out where is the best location to place these signs before we bring funding authorization through to you for this signage.
Was this the parking availability?
This is the availability, these big 7 foot by 6 foot signs that would go up on the highway that say parking lot A, 17 spots, parking lot B, 37 spots, parking lot C, 0 spots.
Okay.
Shane?
Has that Clever City app been
That
rolled
is clever. What's that?
Has that Clever City app been rolled out yet, or
It has not been rolled out.
Okay.
No, it has not.
is anyone testing it though?
I have not received any beta test. I will make a note of think he kind of heard, like he was still gonna let us beta test it, but not roll it out because they were concerned about having
Yeah, because
two apps, one for payment and one for navigation.
Yeah, the committee was concerned about lots of different apps that could cause a lot of
Okay.
confusion with the
Yeah.
community and with the tourists.
I remember you sent an email out about.
I did about
that,
looking
and
for people to beta
I
test
told
it.
you to put me on the list.
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
Okay.
then we had the meeting with the parking
Okay,
committee and they had some hesitation.
gotcha.
And I haven't followed up Sonny about the app since.
No worry, I might have missed that.
No, I didn't update you. And that is all I have.
All right,
Thanks, Elsie.
Chantel.
Mayor, just a brief update, the AP specialist position, that the application deadline has passed. And we are looking at doing interviews next week. Quite a few, was it 6 we agreed on? Yeah, so quite a few to choose from. And the annual report is technically done, city's annual report. So he's doing a final review of it this week. It is due by Friday, so it will be submitted on time.
Right.
My only real update is that Sue and Amber, who used to live at City Hall, have now moved down to the Public Works campus. So Public Works has taken over the op shop that parking was in before, the little green building. And it is not open to the public. So in order to meet with Public Works, unless it's Kit and Brantley who are now up in City Hall, and then I'm in old spaces. We're just asking for people to schedule appointments for Sue and Amber because the workspace there is not conducive to the public entry. We do have the mobile office that's located down right off Commercial and 14th Street, right at that entrance. And we have a conference room in there. And so if someone schedules something, that's where we'll meet them. As long as Sue or Amber's availability allows, like we would meet them in 10 minutes when they can get down there, but we're just asking if no one gets directed down to that office. So, other than that, staffing, obviously, Brantley, he started and we're really happy to have him on board. All three of our new parks team members have started, and in hiring one of those, he came from our streets and utilities division, so we now have vacancy on streets and utilities. There's a utility maintenance worker position that's been posted and has also closed, and interviews scheduled this week and next. And then the only other vacancy we have at this point is our wastewater treatment plant supervisor. Other than that, we are actually closed up in Public Works.
Have you guys gotten any applications for that position, the waste, the,
Supervisor?
yeah, the supervisor?
Not recently.
No. No.
Sorry, Andy.
We have not received any applications. We may have one incoming. But we do not have any.
That job's been posted for a while. Right?
Yes.
It has.
Yes, it has. That's a tough one.
No one wants to do it.
All right.
Thanks, Andy.
We are ready for.
I move to adjourn.
All those in favor, let me see your hands, and we are adjourned.
Ah,
Nice beard, Z.
hey, thanks.
Thanks, Ann.
Summer beard.
I know.
Good time for the heat.
Right, well, it's a test, it's a probe.
No, I'll be here. I will have a desk then.
People at home, but I can say,
But I'm gonna be at the shop.
people at
The
home.
mayor's gonna be running.
Haven't said anything, so.
I will have
Yeah.
ample
No
opportunity.
news can be good news sometimes.
Solitude in the waiting room.
A lot of the time.
I thought it worked well for Sean Connery, try that again. There we go.
Solitude, ample time. While waiting on my
Yeah, Devin Holden, I thought, I'd seen exactly stuff shaving.
Never mind. Mine's in the record.
I give it up. You
They're
got
just gonna
yours.
take a look.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
I'm not gonna worry about that.